Hello, good evening, good morning, and good afternoon for some of our viewers here tonight. Welcome to the Daytona Continental, the 18th running of the Daytona Continental here at Daytona Super Speedway, I should say, the Daytona International Speedway. My name is Anthony McCurry. I'm joined alongside of Logan Brakey, Slipstream Formula One driver, Logan Brakey, I might add. He will be joining me in the booth. Logan, how are you feeling about tonight's race?
Well, a little more pressure now that you've given me that title. Yeah, looking forward to this one. First time calling an IMSA or a multi-class event such as this one at easily my favorite road course of all time, the Daytona road course. Can't wait for this one to get underway.
It's going to be a fantastic race tonight. We have 2.5 hours on tap tonight for tonight's race, the 18th running of the Daytona Continental here for the USRA American Le Mans Series. It's race 2 of this championship. 2 weeks ago, we were in Sebring for the 2.5 hours of Sebring. That race was won overall by Dan Neese, a 2-lap advantage he had at the end of that race. Your winner in GT2 went to the Corvette driver. That would have been Tyler Landenberg. And then in GT3, your winner was the Mercedes AMG of Jordan Malcolm. All of those drivers, apart from, I believe, Landenberg, are starting on the pole in their respective class as the cars start to roll off for their half pace lap. Logan, 2.5 hours seems like a long race, and it can be a long race if the track is brutal enough and the speeds are fast enough. We're going to put these drivers under the pressure of 2.5 hours of Daytona. What are you expecting throughout the rest of tonight's race as we get ready to take the green flag here from Daytona?
Well, I mean, you mentioned it right there. If the key phrase was if the track is brutal enough, and now, I mean, most people don't look at Daytona as a notoriously difficult or brutal racetrack, but today is going to be a different story. We've got a track temp, Anthony, of 135 degrees. That is insanely hot, and it's going to provide insanely slick racing. We saw it in practice. Guys were slipping and sliding. Problem corners to look out for: the exit of the International Horseshoe and the kink on the run down to the West Horseshoe were the problem corners in practice as pace car pulls off here.
We're about ready to set these drivers underway for 2 hours and 30 minutes of racing. The green flag out for the prototypes. The GTs will take their green flag very shortly, as it looks like that Dan Neese is going to have the advantage going down into turn 1 side by side, battling behind. That's going to be the 2 other prototypes that they actually settled it out to 2 wide racing at the moment, as that would be Baquid Genois, who is going to be starting in 2nd place, and then Daniel Michael, who is going to be running in 3rd place at the moment. They get sorted out.
Big problem in the S's there, Anthony. 2 cars upside down. One of them sliding all the way through to the other side of the track on his lid. It's 2 Mercs.
We got to go back and look at what happened there. Wow, I see them in the foreground. It looks like that we're under a full course yellow because of it. Our first full course yellow of the night, and it happens on lap 1, very much like it happened 2 weeks ago in Sebring. So we're going to stack them up again and try this again. Wow, I kind of didn't expect to see that, but they were tight going into turn 1, a very tight turn 1 at this racetrack. And, you know, even though they were just starting the race, the high speeds are kind of what maybe brought to fruition that incident, as through the S's is not a very easy way to get through, especially at the start.
That was colossal, Anthony. It involved the 156 Merc of Scott Rankin and the 2 Audi of Josh Patterson came together there in the S's, and it looks like that was Sartaj Mann in the 49 Merc. That was a bystander on that. He was one of the 2 Mercs that flipped over. A 3-car incident there. There was a P2 that was near behind that, started at the rear of the field, that luckily got away unscathed. But just a colossal incident to start this event.
Indeed it was, as we see here a replay of the incident. Wow, just tagged the wall into the pit wall, and yeah, it was just a little hook, and they went around, and there was a prototype that actually went off the track as well. And so 2 cars getting together at the start of the race. That is why we are under the yellow flag. Man, you just got to admit, man, that was something scary for some of those drivers at the very beginning of this race. And, you know, it's like I said, it's probably just a byproduct of, you know, drivers getting a little bit too, I guess, they want to try to get as much position as they can at the start of the race, but there's just no way that you can. Are we under full course yellow? All right, my thing says we are. We are indeed.
Still full course yellow. And to your point, you're absolutely right. It's guys trying to get every position they can, but you know, there's a lot of give and take that needs to happen through those S's, and you see they're chaotic in every series that comes here. You always see that's everybody leans forward at the edge of their seats at the start of the Daytona 24 because of how tightly packed those S's get at the start of these races. And it's just a case of that gap closes down whenever you make that last left-hand little kink to come onto the short run up to the International Horseshoe. And that gap will close down quick if you're side by side with somebody and they don't see you, or they think they're clear, or whatever might have caused that. But you got to give and take. 2.5 hours. There was a lot of racing to go, and those guys are going to be done for the day, unfortunately. That's 3 of our GT3 competitors that are going to be probably out of contention in this one.
At least 3 of them. One is still on pit road, that being the 156 machine of Scott Rankin, who had a whale of a flip, him and Sergeant Mann, who went over on their roof. Mann has come back on the track and is back trying to catch the tail end of the field. Someone else who's running at the back of the pack, and that's the 72 of Shane Loveridge, who in the Ford GT had a pretty... I would say a lackluster showing at Sebring. He wanted a better run, didn't quite get the run he was hoping for. Finished, I believe, not last, but I believe 4th in his class, which was the last place position in his class at the moment of the race, because the leader took himself out by hitting the pit wall going to turn 1. That was one of the Corvettes that went out that race, and so he's looking for a good run here today. It's early on in the race, came down for some service. Don't know if there was any damage on that Ford GT, but he's back on track and hoping that he can bounce back from this early race pit. We have 2 hours and 25 minutes to go, and very much like last race, we are still looking for our first green flag lap, our first official green flag lap. This was the case last time, except it was 2 prototypes getting together. A little bit different here this race, as we are back under pacing. Logan, this being your first multi-class broadcast, how are you feeling about it now that we have some time to kind of catch our breaths and gather our thoughts before the race gets back to full tilt?
Yeah, this is probably I love watching this type of motorsport. I'm not extremely knowledgeable on the ins and outs of it like I am maybe with NASCAR or definitely with Formula One, but it's always extremely exciting to sit back and watch. I love the multi-class events. Loved Daytona 24 Hours, my favorite racing event of the year. Any year really. It's always up there, number 1. It's the one I'm most excited to watch every year, and now on iRacing, it's always the one I'm most excited to race in. It's just Daytona's such an awesome venue, and it's a really I don't know if beautiful is the right word, but there's something special about driving through that infield section, at 1 a.m, whether it be in sim time or in real life, or maybe both. Driving through that infield section, seeing the glowing infield, the Ferris wheel. It's just a really spectacular venue here at Daytona for the 24 hours, and it's such a cool event. And multi-class racing has always, like I said, been up there number 1 in terms of motorsports for me. It's so much fun to watch.
multi-class racing is unlike any other form of motorsport in the world, in the fact that you basically have multiple races going on the racetrack at the same time. In this particular series, it's three, being our prototype and our two GT classes. The pace lights are off. The pace car, our Porsche safety car, which will be coming down pit road this lap. So we'll be getting these guys underway. Only 2 pace laps, so pretty good about that. These drivers will not be caged up for very much longer. Dan Neese is still your overall leader. He had a 2-lap advantage over the rest of the field last time out at Sebring. He's looking to double down here tonight and go 2 for 2 on the season. And I'd like to also mention that this is one of our crown jewel races. There's one of 4 races this season that are the crown jewel races. So we have this one. We'll touch on the races that are upcoming that are considered crown jewels in a few moments, as we are about ready to take the green flag yet again. Dan Neese will get us back underway in prototype, and he takes the green, and he gets a pretty good jump.
It was a slow start for the tail end of the P2. There was the Corvette there, got a good launch on it.
And speaking of lunge, the Porsche of Vallejo trying to get in there and almost some contact. Whoa, there is a car that goes off. That's one of the other Corvettes that just went and overdrove turn 1. And he's going to slow down quite a bit. That was Gavin Smith who overdrove turn 1. And now the Corvettes are having to go at the lead Corvette is having to go at the tail end of the prototype field, as he's trying to hold off the advances of Vallejos, who had a great showing at Sebring, looking for another great showing here, but the Corvette trying to get away as another prototype coming in. That's Kevin Hurley trying to get around these GT2 traffic. Oh, what a lunge! And that's going to open the door for Vallejos. Lead change in GT2. Almost. They're side by side. Here comes Landenberg, who's trying to get his second win of the season in that Corvette.
Really feisty battle here for the top 3 of the GTEs. Brody Garner in that 18 vet gonna get the upper hand for now, but yeah, I mean, you touched on it and you saw him very aggressive on that restart, trying to get every bit of positioning he can on the rest of the field. Really deep into the West Horseshoe, though. I thought he was going to get into the back of that P2 that we saw just in front of him. Things settled down for the meantime, anyway.
In the meantime, there's a battle in GT3. Malcolm and Mann battling into the bus stop. Those two almost had a bit of a tangle going into it, as Mann just barely got that car stopped in enough time, and now they spread out to about a half-second advantage over his competitor, Mann, who is going to fall back to second. Josh Patterson is falling into the clutches of Shane Loveridge in the only 4 GT in the field. That GT trying to carve his way through the GT3 traffic as he made an early pit stop. Not sure if it was for damage or not, but he is carving his way through. And Patterson, the lone Audi in the field, and you got to think that this track might favor the Audi as it's got better straight line speed than the Mercedes AMGs do. We'll have to see how that holds up, as we're still very early in this race. 2 hours, 20 minutes to go. Sound and Vision on the Flatout Racing Network, and we are green flag racing officially now. And Dan Neese trying to pull an advantage over the 15 of Jeannois, and he is trying. I think he is actually pulling a bit of a gap. It's about a 1.5 second gap. A little bit less than that, a 1.2 second gap back to him. And then you have Daniel Michael, who is 3rd overall. Justin Erb, who took a wild ride at the start of last race at Sebring. He kind of went up on the nose of Blumengrantz and, kind of Tony Hawked it off of the nose, and that brought out our full course yellow the last race out. Now he's running 4th, trying to get a good finish here, and so far showing very well.
So one thing I did fail to notice that I've noticed now is these guys have a fast repair in their pocket. So all those guys that we saw collected in that incident there over in the S's have now fully repaired their machines and are back out on track. The only one that is truly suffering right now is the 156 Merc of Scott Rankin. He is 1 lap down, currently running plumb last right now in P19. But all those guys that you saw in that first incident are all good and well. And in fact, one of them, Sartaj Man, one of the Mercs that we saw, flipped over on its lid in the slipstream of Jordan Malcolm and might be trying to move down here into turn 1. This is a big passing zone here, Anthony.
This is a very big passing zone. He tried to have a look, couldn't quite make the run happen, and now he's going to fall back and try to set himself up again. All the while, that GT2 of Loveridge coming up to try to get around them. A big difference between the GT2s and the GT3s. We touched on it last time, but the GT2s are very much a pro category. They are pretty much the fastest of the GTs that you could possibly get. They have no driver aid. They have no anti-lock brakes, no traction control. Well, I think they might have traction control, but no anti-lock brakes. And the big advantage is that the GT3s do have anti-lock brakes, so that might be beneficial to some of these drivers. But they are a bit underpowered compared to the other ones.
Usually not wise to lean on those anti-lock brakes. They're more there just in case, you know, you get into one of those intense battles and maybe you're a little bit heavier on the brake pedal, going a little bit deeper, and that's where it comes in handy. But usually not wise to rely on that ABS. This battle is broken up just a little bit there between the 49 and the 335.
The battle between those two kind of not there at the moment. There was a battle happening. Daniel Michael and Eric Blumengrantz, who was in a bit of a battle going to turn one. They're still in a bit of a battle going around the International Horseshoe as, looks like that Michael gets off into the grass a bit. Now Blumengrant's going to have a run on him. Daniel Michael believe this is his first start in the series so far. That's a very nice scheme as he overdrives the second of the hairpins, and that's going to allow Blumengrantz to take the position away. Not quite, though. He's trying. And not quite. He's going to stay back. Oh, he almost lost it coming out onto the NASCAR portion of the racetrack, so he's going to concede the position to the 99 for the moment, as looks like back in the GT battle. Looks like Madden has taken the lead in GT3. Now give that lead to Sergeant Madden, but Jordan Malcolm not going anywhere. Loveridge is still back here with him, and he's going to play a wild card in this match, but Madden going to try and pull away from him. Looks like going towards the Daytona part, he's going to have a bit of a 2-car length advantage.
See, the problem you have here if you're in a Mercedes is you're in the GT3 class, that is, you're usually faster around the oval than the GTDs are, and that's not down to the driver, that's just down to the car. There's a big problem in the 24-hour earlier this year is you'd get caught by the GTE in a GT3, and you'd have to wait quite a while before they could get that run built up. You see him now trying to get around these two cars, Loveridge that is, and that Ford GT, but the Mercs are a little bit faster than the GTEs are in a straight, so it provides a little bit of a challenge here for Loveridge to get around these two. The only advantage he really has is going to be inside of the infield, but you see him use the slipstream to his advantage, moving to the outside, and he should have this pass completed going into the one. He could go in a little bit deeper. There he goes,
and he is going to do it.
But it was so frustrating, Anthony, in that Daytona 24. As I said, that was a bit of a moment there. Both of them get away unscathed, but being in those AMGs, Anthony, you'd have a BMW or a Porsche roar up behind you in the oval. They're flashing their lights away, asking you to get out of the way, but you just outpace them on the ovals, and it was so frustrating because they'd sit maybe 2 to 3 laps consecutively behind you, trying to find a way to get past you, because this infield section is not all that long. There's only maybe 4 or 5 corners in there that they have an opportunity to get around you. So it was frustrating throughout the course of a 24-hour race to deal with the faster traffic that's really not all that much faster than you.
Not at all. And I just looked at our relative. We have someone of the prototype.
Yeah, Joaquin Janois.
Yeah, Janois has fallen out. I don't know if he had an incident or if that was lag that came out. He was running consistent.
Yeah, it looks like it's connection related.
We'll have to...
Yeah, receive throughput fell to an unacceptable level.
Oh, no. So that's
connection related. Yeah, he was running, as you said, he was running up there in second. He wasn't battling with Dan for the lead, but he was running well, had some good pace.
Had a really good run going. It actually was closing in on Nice at one point throughout that run, and he's going to fall out of the session. Samuel Frazier also looks like he's having some connection issues as he's now gone off track. Just as we mentioned, Jean-Noir going off. Who that benefits, though, is Justin Erb, who is looking to extend his fortune from last week, or not last week, but 2 weeks ago, as he's now inherited second place. Eric Lemongrants, who is also looking for another good run here tonight. He is running in the third position, and he's in a battle between himself and Daniel Michael, who this battle
we
has
got a car off in the. Sorry, Anthony. We got 2 cars off in the bus stop. One of them was Gavin Smith, the 17 Corvette, and it looks like there was a Merc that went off as well. He just ran wide as a separate incident. Both separate incidents. Not really a spin for that 7. Well, it was, but no harm, no foul. Just got in there a little too hot, but gonna lose him some time. He's still not back on track.
Gavin Smith's tried to find his way back on track. He's back onto the high bank. I don't know if I'd gone up there quite so early, but there was no one behind him, so pretty easy to make that merge back onto the racing surface. And, you know, this race only being 2.5 hours compared to a 24-hour race, it's still the mentality of must go fast is there and must go fast all the time. And for one driver, 2.5 hours is pretty lengthy, especially given the circuit we're at.
Yeah, it's 2.5 hours, and you think about, you try to put it into perspective, you know, and in NASCAR, for instance, the full distance races, you're spending maybe 3 hours driving around an oval. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than that. Of course, we all know that, but you try to put it in perspective. You seem to tire out a lot quicker running these cars in lengthy stints of 2.5 to 3 hours. Just because you're doing so much more throughout the lap. There's left, there's right. So you're changing gear, you're braking, you're accelerating, you're battling traffic in this in this scenario. You're focusing on faster traffic. So 2.5 hours is a long time, and that being said, that's about an average stint in a 24-hour race. And in the real world, most IMSA races are about 2.5 to 3 hours long. And mind you, that being said, there is usually one driver change. So, yeah, it's a different element to take into effect.
Endurance racing is physical on the body and the mind. We're not going to experience a lot of the endurance racing types that we see in this race particular, as it looks like that man got a little bit off the track. This battle for the GT3 lead is not going away anytime soon. It's actually the best battle on the racetrack at the moment, so we're going to keep an eye on this. We're not going to experience any day-to-night action at this race. We are running the race in full daylight, but that also means that the track conditions are going to be a little less than ideal for some of these drivers, because the track temps, as we saw, are north of 100 degrees, and you know, these tires, they don't really like anything that high, and we're going to see a lot of, you see Mans trying to get some, just weaving around the track, trying to get away from Jordan Malcolm, who looking for his second win on the season as well. Still trying his best. The leader in GT2 being Brody Gardner, who is...
He's driven away.
Yeah, that's the best way that anyone could put it. He is just checked out and has opened a 5-second advantage on to Vallejos, who Vallejos had a good run 2 weeks ago as well. They finished in the top 3. I believe that he was second place. And that was due to the misfortune that we saw with the second of the 2 Corvettes. That was not Gardner. The name that has slipped me of who was actually driving the car at the time. I apologize for that. But they were leading the race and then had a bit of an incident where they tagged the inside pit wall and basically took themselves out of contention and retired from the race. Landenberg inherited the lead and is looking for another win, although running third at the moment. Still a long way to go. 2 hours and 8 minutes remain in this race, and we've gotten to a bit of a part where we're kind of settling in, seeing how the cars are going to handle How does it look like the cars have been handling so far? Is this typical Daytona that we usually see, or are you noticing anything that might be a little bit different?
Well, I mean, in terms of how skittish these cars are regarding track temp, it looks to be like the Mercs have the most grip corner exit, and part of that could be due to the amount of traction control that they have. But I've been seeing the GTEs having a lot more trouble in corner exit just with getting the power down. The back end tends to kind of step out on them and tries to swap ends. But I mean, yeah, par for the course for Daytona. We've got overall leader Dan Neese coming around to lap our two GT3 leaders for the first time. He's going to blow by them on the outside.
Gonna do that, makes the move nice and pretty. And that's another thing that if you're not quite familiar with how multi-class racing works, that is a normal occurrence, and it is scary for the GT drivers every time that a prototype comes up on them. It's not a battle for position, but it's still scary when you see those headlights coming.
It's scary when you don't see them. But if you're, most of these guys will drive with their relative up, their relative black box in the bottom right corner of their screen or wherever they chose to move it. So when you've got a car that is big slide from Sartaj, a big step out there, a lot of blocking here we're seeing, but good defensive driving from these two. But to finish my thought there, a lot of these guys will drive with the relative up, and when they see a red name popping up, that means it's a car that's a lap ahead. So you're aware that there's a car that's a lap ahead. It might be faster traffic. It could be a car that's a lap ahead of you in your class, but you're aware of that. So you kind of glance up at the mirror every now and again, and when you see that P2 car coming up on you, it's, if you're slow, stay low is what they tell drivers here at Daytona. So if you're the slower traffic, stay to the bottom, and the faster traffic will make their way around you on the top. That's, of course, regards to the oval. It's a different story if you get caught in the infield. That's all kinds of haywire, and it's always exciting. There's always that point in the race, Anthony, where you've got that big cluster of cars at one point in the track, and it's a mix of faster and slower traffic, and it always leads to some entertaining couple of corners as the faster traffic tries to get around the cluster of slower traffic.
Oh yeah, it's when the accordion effect happens in the infield section. It's the thinnest part of the racing surface. The high banks here have plenty of room for drivers to make passes, as you mentioned, but like you said, when you get in there, it's almost like you run out of room, and you kind of get impatient if you're a prototype driver. You want to get by the slower traffic, but you can't throw away your race that early if it's early in the race. If it's towards the end of the race, and you make some bold moves, but especially if it's, as we see right now with the GTs.
I was just going to say, we've got one of those clusters right now. The there's a P2 battle and a GT3 battle for the lead. Usually doesn't end so clean, but the 21 went a little bit wide there. That was Kevin Hurley, but all good there.
Yeah, it looks like they've gotten through okay, and that, to my point, that's, you kind of get a little bit impatient with the GT drivers, and you want to make them, especially if you're battling in someone else, and you don't want to sit there.
Yeah, Kevin Hurley lost a spot in that exchange there, but that was Daniel Michael that got past Hurley there, but going down into turn one, they both displayed a lot of patience. They didn't dive it in around the outside like maybe we'll see later in the race, but we're 28 minutes into this race, so still plenty of time. There was no element of urgency. Wow. No element of urgency really from those P2 cars to really get by those guys in a quick manner.
As we saw, that was Daniel Michael almost throwing it away in the bus stop.
Yeah, that'll happen. You get in there a little too deep. You try to. The aim when you're going through those bus stops is to try and clip every curb, and sometimes you get in there a little too deep. That's you get a little tunnel vision trying to focus on that, and that's exactly what happens. But
looks like he's gotten back in the right direction, heading towards trying to get back up to Hurley.
Malcolm went way wide in turn one, a little bit of lockup. That's going to allow Sartaj to go back by. It's a cracker of a battle going on here between these two.
Make that 3. Andy McDowell has joined the fight. So now it's a 3-car fight for the lead in GT3 as all 3 of these AMGs have proven that they are the fastest on the racetrack. And now we get to see who of these 3 are the fastest. We are still got a long way to go, but these drivers willing to establish dominance now as the 20 Petronas team trying to get back to the back end of these 2. And as it plays like we always see, the GTs offer the best battles on the racetrack wholesale as, whoa, looks like Malcolm's having to go back onto the oval, and here he comes, trying to make a move. That's going to bring McDowell into this fight as he's looking for the lead of the race. Maybe if these 2 check up, have a little bit of a lockup going into the bus stop, McDowell, excuse me, is right there. He can capitalize on this.
A little bit of the ABS being on display there. Lots of blocking from Sartaj early on. Surely Jordan's not going to be too appreciative of that. 30 minutes into a 2.5-hour event. Whoa. Side by side through the bus stop. Oh, there's a nudge. There was a bump. There was a bump from Sartaj there. You saw it. It scooted Jordan a little bit wide, and now he's going to have to reel him back in.
And that's going to bring McDowell up to the back end of Malcolm. And, you know, McDowell, I don't know if McDowell wants to pass these guys at the moment. Even if he has a faster car, he can save some fuel here by not trying to battle so much. And as I say that, he's going to have a go into turn 1. It looks like side by side, outside line. What can he do? Sails it into turn 1, is able to get the position, no problem. Now he sets his sights on the lead of the race. I would dare say that Andy McDowell has probably got the fastest long-run car of these 3, as he's got to make the move quick, because don't look now, but here comes the prototype. And whenever we see a prototype or any faster car come into the mix of a battle on the racetrack on the lower class, especially if it's the lead of the race, you know, it kind of throws in a monkey wrench. You can't make a move that you want to because you have an extra car there that you can't get a position from. It's actually trying to lap you. So we're gonna have to see what happens. I can't quite tell which prototype. This is 65 of Andrew J. Millen, who is quite a bit behind the rest of the P2s, but he is still making his name known. He's getting some airtime.
Just listening into the comms too, and Jordan Malcolm not happy with that incident there in the bus stop, calling for race control to look into it.
I wouldn't blame him.
There was a little bit of a nudge there from Sartaj. I didn't see anything too wrong from it, but obviously frustrated, like I said, from all the blocking that was going on there from the 49 Merc so early into this event. You obviously can understand it if it's in the closing laps, of course, but this early into an event, it's a little, it will rub drivers the wrong way, so perhaps just a little frustration there. As Andy and Jordan now engage in their own battle for P2 in class. And Jordan's going to have the slipstream here. More blocking from Andy. My goodness.
McDowell not willing to concede the position. Goes up to the high line. Tries to make the run a little bit more difficult for the 335. Still holding his own, trying to get on the power quicker, but I think that Malcolm might have gotten on the power just a bit quicker that time, and they're both catching the leader of Man. And Man, I will say, once he gets in the lead, he doesn't walk away from these 2 drivers. He's actually been reeled in again, and here it comes. Here comes McDowell trying to go through the kink. What can he do? Around the outside. Whoa, that was a bold move, but he does get the position, and now we have a new leader in the GT3 class. Give that to Andy McDowell, and now Sergeant Mann is going to have a battle between him and Malcolm again. And you know there's some bad blood between these drivers. As the incident in the bus stop 2 laps ago, what's going to happen onto the speedway portion of the racetrack?
I believe those 2 are teammates, if I'm not mistaken, this Sartaj and Andy. So maybe a little bit of a multi-2-1 situation there. As you know, that you saw Andy Sartaj pull over coming into the kink, and almost looked like he let Andy through. So Andy, obviously, like you said, fastest of these 3 right now. So maybe a little bit of teamwork going on there, as you see Jordan closing back in on Sartaj through the bus stop. Just now getting word from race control, Anthony, that the 49 has been warned for his blocking. We commented on that numerous amounts of times. We thought it was excessive. He has been warned about it. And should it continue, likely a penalty will be coming his way.
That same breath, the 99 of Blemingrants is on pit road, and he's actually on pit road for quite a while. 2 minutes on pit road, so something happened to the 99 while we were focusing on that GT battle. We're not quite sure what happened. We might take a moment to go back and look at it, as we've kind of hit a low period.
He binned it into the tires in turn 1, Anthony. Got in too deep, locked it up. I don't even know if he locked up. He just went in too deep and stuffed it into those tire barriers.
So obviously not what he was looking for. He was running in the top 5. I dare say, I think he was running 3rd at the time. And now he's going to be all the way back. We're trying to get a vision for you here. And here we go. This is into turn 1, going around Lanningston. And just misses his braking zone, gets off onto the apron and right into the tire wall. Stalled the car, could not go anywhere. I think he actually got stuck in the tire barrier and had to tow it.
Got stuck, yep. And it looks like our cycle of stops could be starting. I'm seeing Sartaj Man on pit road right now. He's getting new tires thrown on there, fueled up.
Man is on. So the GT's looking to come down pit road, and you know, usually we see the prototypes come down pit road first, but this time it looks like that the GTs are going to start it, although Man might have used up some of his stuff and might have actually had something happen when he made contact earlier with Malcolm. This might also be serving. He hasn't been
penalized. No, he's still sitting on pit road, so he could be repairing optional damage. The car is still running, but he's going to lose a lap here to his class. So that's not usually how long pit stops will take. So he should have been well off and away. So I got to think there's some other issues going on there right now.
Usually, like I mentioned, we usually would see the prototypes on pit road first, as they have less fuel that they carry compared to the GTs. And so far, none of them have opted to come down scheduled, I might add. Kevin Hurley and Daniel Michael are still in the battle for the now second place position in Prototype 2. Hurley has position, but less than half a second behind is Dan Michael. And I gotta say, Dan Michael has been showing quite a bit of a good run tonight, as he has been up at the front pretty much since the start. And now he's gonna have a challenge for the second place position. He's going to have to go in. If he wants to get the position this lap, he's going to have to sail it in, but he does not. He actually breaks a little bit earlier than Hurley. Hurley opting to go deeper, and now he's going to have to deal with some of the GT traffic. That is one of the AMGs. That is, I believe, that's a 156, so that would be Scott Rankin as he goes around. So too does Daniel Michael. So a battle between these two drivers, and whoa, a little bit of a
big slide.
Coming out of the International Horseshoe, that's going to open the door for Michael to close back in through the infield section.
And that all comes down to track temperature, Anthony. That's the only factor that's really causing those back ends to step out like that, because there's so much grip on these P2s, and that the track temp is just so astronomically hot, still 135 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's just a scorching track. It's absolutely slick right now, and those tires are a little bit worn now too, as we've done about 20 laps and we're 38 minutes into this race, maybe about 32 minutes of green flag racing, but 20 laps on these tires, so they are starting to get a little bit worn, which is making it more difficult to keep temperatures up.
And it looks like it was going to be another run, but not quite able to do it. As we look at the track info on the bottom right of your screen, the outside temp only 83 degrees, but that track temp, like he said, 135. Whoa, I just looked up at the screen and they almost ran into the Audi, that being Josh Patterson. And now this is going to be a battle down into turn 1 between these two prototypes. It looks like that Michael has got the position on the outside line. Hurley falls back, but does Hurley have a run into turn 1? He thought about it. Couldn't quite make it in. He goes way wide. He's going to have to swing that around, but now Michael's going to run away with it, as Hurley did not have a very good turn 1 entry. And now Michael is going to have to deal with the GT2 leader, I should say, that being Brody Gardner, trying to get around that that car there. I believe it was actually Brody Gardner who made the contact. I think he was racing last week. That was the driver that slipped my mind. He's actually running in first place, and I do apologize for that. It's been 2 weeks since then, and there's been a lot of races that I've called since then, and sometimes names run together, and I do apologize for forgetting that Brody Gardner was in that race and running the factory livery for that Corvette, which I gotta say looks stunning on that car. As
Was there
Hurley goes
contact?
around.
Was there was there a bit of contact there from?
I'm not sure. We're gonna go take a look at it since that just happened right in front of us. Wow.
He lost it on the brakes. Nope, no contact there. Just lost it on the brakes, and then we saw him very wisely. Actually, he whipped it around to the right in order to avoid stuffing it into the tires.
This is a
Very.
replay of it.
Yeah, very, very wise indeed from that, but it was so close. That was almost our class leader of the GT2s there.
Brody Gardner doing a good job of getting on the brakes in order to avoid that. That could have been catastrophic for him, as he has a pretty good advantage over second place in class, that being almost a 17-second gap between him and Vallejos. So that Corvette is a rocket at the moment. Vallejos has only got about a 2.5-second lead over Tyler Lanningberg, who is not having a very good run compared to Sebring, who's actually won that race. And both the Corvettes were doing a fantastic job of just walking away from the rest of the GT2 field. And we look at Vallejos at the moment. I said it 2 weeks ago. I'm going to say it again. That is probably the best livery of any of the cars running on the track right now. As that. Oh, speaking of Lanningberg, I just looked. He's binned it in turn 1.
Oh, certainly has there. Has he binned it? How hard has he binned it is the question. Has he hit the inside wall?
I don't.
Just a kiss. Just a kiss of the nose, I think, from that vet. Yeah, just a small little kiss on that inside wall.
Oh, so almost ending his day. He was running third place trying to catch up, and we're looking at it live now. And yeah, he just got a little squirrely going into turn 1 and loops it around. And like you said, ooh, just the ever slightest of bumps into the inside wall. But that could have ended a lot of ways, and that was probably the best outcome you could have gotten out of that, given what happened. And wow,
I think it was a case of little monkey see, monkey do, Anthony. He goes into turn 1 and he sees a little bit of a lockup from Horatio there in that Porsche. Sees a little bit of a lockup, maybe causes him to do the same. It happens more time than you think, but trying to get a little too much, but comes away pretty much unscathed from it.
Does indeed do that. I was also noticing that Eric Blemmengrantz is back on the racing surface after having kind of a bin into the inside, or the outside wall, I should say. That was a tire barrier in turn 1, so he's back on track. And he's now just past Vallejos. I'll continue.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'll continue. Oh, I know now why you're trying to cut me off. He overdrove turn 1 again.
He was. Well, I was going to mention too that he is currently 1 lap down to his class, so he is off the lead lap in his class right now. So he's going to be working. I see it being mighty tough to get that lap back under green. I'm not sure if wave arounds are a thing. Should there be a yellow of any kind?
I'm not entirely sure. Oh, that's
the
Audi.
Yeah, that was Josh Patterson, the 2 Audi. He stuffed it pretty good there in the West Horseshoe.
Oh, wow, there's a lot of damage on that car. He's actually going to park it and probably get a tow. No, he's actually going to wait for traffic to get by. Veteran move on the part of the 2 cars. Ooh, that car does not look very happy. That happened right in front of second place in GT2, so we're going to have to take a look at this incident, as we've had a couple of drivers get off track very recently.
Lost it, quite possibly, aside from the bus stop, quite possibly the worst place to have an off on this track, and it was exiting the kink. He tried to carry a little too much speed, I think, through the kink, got a little too much of that inside curb, upset the balance of the car on the exit. The back end kicked out, and as soon as he was off into that dirt, he's along for the ride. He's got the brakes locked, but Nothing he could have done.
Nothing he could have done to stop that. He actually had some pre-existing damage on the rear wing. Not sure where that came from. As he is back on track, trying his best to get it to pit road. As we now go back to live, there's Justin Erb on your screen, running in 4th place, trying to bounce back from a bit of a scary start on the part of all the prototypes, really, and running very well in a solid 4th place position. Kevin Hurley is actually, I'm looking now, Dan Neese has made a pit stop. So Neese has come down. Justin Erb has come down, I think. No, yes, he has. So Justin Erb has also made his pit stop. So the lead temporarily has been handed over to Daniel Michael. And if the trend holds up, we should be seeing him come down pit road either this lap or the next. And that would include Kevin Hurley as well, as Hurley is now finishing his stop. He's now coming back on track. And Andrew J. Mellon has also had his stop. So the prototypes have cycled around as we were checking the incident of the number 2 Audi. Here comes your race leader, your overall race leader down pit road for his first stop of the night. We're about, I'd say, 33 minutes into the race. So that is the pit window, as you're on the throttle for a lot of this lap. So we're going to see these drivers on pit road at least one more time. I think he almost stretched it to the end. You see he's shaking it around trying to get to his box.
Not sure what the fuel load is here for these cars. I'm trying to look at the race info. It looks like they might just be a full tank. So if that's the case, I think it would be a stretch to do one more. You might see these guys do 2 more stops. We're about 46 minutes into this race. Perhaps one more stop would be good to the end of this thing for our race leaders. But, our class leaders looking at Andy McDowell and the AMG Mercedes, still in that fierce battle with Jordan Malcolm, P1 and P2 right there. But these two have yet to come to pit road as well. So they're not using as much fuel as our P2 classes are. But they'll be in a similar boat. It's a lot of the lap is spent hammer down around this oval, so fuel consumption is a tough thing to manage here.
Fuel consumption at this particular track, this is probably the hardest on fuel load in North America for the GT series. I would say for the American Le Mans series specifically in this setting is, like, you're on throttle pretty much the entire lap. You're on full throttle, especially when you get onto the oval section of the racetrack. It's just nonstop. You spend about 70% of the lap all the way hammered to the floor. And that is hard on a lot of these drivers. Fuel load, especially the prototypes who don't run with nearly as much fuel as the GTs. The GTs can go quite a bit longer than these prototypes can. The only other track that I could think of, the first track that comes to mind that's also hard on fuel is Le Mans, obviously, with most of that lap also being full throttle. Another track, ironically, is Paul Ricard, even though that a lot of people don't really favor Paul Ricard, and I honestly don't blame them. But Paul Ricard has a special place for a lot of drivers, as being the return to the French Grand Prix in Formula One, which is something that I know a lot of French fans were waiting for a long time. And I believe the European Le Mans series ran a very successful race there recently, and that was a nice race to watch. And we're here in the American Le Mans series, running a nice race here at Daytona, as looks like that we've kind of cycled around back into a bit of a calm period, I should say, for these drivers.
Yeah, the calm before the storm, you could say.
Calm before the storm. We are about an hour and 44 minutes to go in the race. Your leader overall, Dan Neese, your leader in GT2 is Brody Gardner, and your leader in GT3 going to be Andy McDowell. We are going to go for a quick commercial break. You will not miss a thing. We're going to go FRN side by side, and we will be returning to you very shortly. Sound and Vision here on the Flatout Racing Network for the Daytona Continental on the USRA American Le Mans Series. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Daytona Continental. You're watching a GT3 lead, I should say. A GT3 lead battle going on between Andy McDowell and Jordan Malcolm. Malcolm had a run going into turn 1 and now is kind of falling back a little bit, although he is on the charge trying to make the pass work. These two drivers have not gone away for a lot of this race and are still battling as we are on our blimp cam looking at this beautiful Daytona International Speedway. And I always like coming to Daytona. There's great racing all the way around here at this circuit, and we are getting a show put on for us tonight from these drivers in GT3. Logan, we see a lot of racing come here to Daytona, and as we touched on earlier in the broadcast, the the endurance racing is kind of our favorite to watch. This is the Rolex 24, even the what is it, the GT Challenge, the Continental GT Challenge that comes, that races before the Daytona 24 hours. And, you know, GT racing at Daytona is something special, especially at night when, like you said, nighttime in the rain here is something special to watch if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I believe it was 2018. It was actually range shortened, I think. We spent a lot of time in the whoa, that was a brake check there from the lead GT3 right there.
I don't
he's in the wall. Yeah, he's not gonna be happy about that. That was wow.
Goodness gracious, that started back on the front.
Boy.
There are some tempers between these two as Malcolm and McDowell get together. Well, this has opened up.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. That was uncalled for.
That was an interesting sequence because that started on the front stretch when the approaching GT2 leader of Brody Gardner didn't change lines. He had the opportunity to go to the high line to get around these two, but did not. Actually went right to the back end and didn't go up and try to pass them. So he had to get on the brakes. That set these two drivers a bit of off center of their going into turn 1. And then, like that, they both make contact, exchanging a few unspoken words on the racetrack as Malcolm pulls away. I don't know what Gardner was thinking, to be honest.
I was able to catch a little bit of that, and it was said Andy was claiming he had a slowdown penalty. I went back and I looked, and he did cut the bus stop chicane enough to where it would have it would have given him one, but he's now had his black flags cleared. But he received the slowdown penalty exiting the bus stop, and he waited until the entrance of the tri-oval. The entrance of pit road before he even attempted to try slowing down, and at that point, you've got Jordan Malcolm, right behind him using the slipstream, and all of a sudden he dabs on the brakes. So I don't know. It's very confusing. Obviously, Malcolm not happy at all about the whole thing. Gave him the shunts going into turn 1. He's now your class leader. Going to have a lot of front end damage, but. McDowell on pit road now, he's used his faster pair, but I don't know. I just think the way that was handled by McDowell was just not smart at all, especially when you get the slowdown in the bus stop, Anthony.
Yeah, that's not the point where you want to serve your penalty.
Yeah, I mean you've got NASCAR turn 3 and 4 to pull high and serve that slowdown penalty right up against the wall or even on the apron. And serve that slowdown penalty rather than just brake checking in the racing line to get that cleared away. So not too sure what the situation was there, what all went on right there, but I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and find out. But regardless, Jordan Malcolm gets away and is now your class leader.
Class leader in GT3 we don't know how permanent that will be because we're still waiting for race control to give us a word on whether or not that will be a penalty he must serve. I think he also cut the chicane again. He's just slowing down again. Yeah, he is slowing down quite a bit as there goes the the 8 machine of Daniel Michel. We have been saying his name wrong all race long, didn't realize it until just now, and we like to correct ourselves. That was Daniel Michel in the 8 prototype. And Malcolm still leading the way. I still don't quite know. I just cut back to him and he almost went off into the grass. But I'm still not quite sure what Brody Gardner was thinking when he approached those two, because that was...
Well, he was trying to get around Malcolm going into the tri-oval, and then all of a sudden, the brakes come on from McDowell, and in turn they come on from Malcolm, and Brody Gardner, class leader of GT2, struggled quite a bit through the West Horseshoe there, didn't he? Wow. He's all of a sudden got to dodge out of the way because there's 2 Mercs that are just jumping on the brakes halfway down the straightaway, well away from any sort of braking zone. It was just weird. And then, of course, you had the McDowell now has left the session. Not sure if that was by request of race control or out of frustration or what. But regardless, it was unfortunate, Anthony, because we saw such a great battle between these two, and to have it end like that is really unfortunate.
Such as endurance racing goes, nothing is permanent in these endurance races, and the race can look extremely different at the end of the race than it did at the beginning or even the middle of the race, and we still got about an hour 35 to go, and this race could look very different by the end of it thus far, as endurance racing always seems to excel in wild action that happens late, pretty much any time in the race really. Is Andy McDowell has retired. We'd also like to give an update on other drivers who have retired from the race as a result of some things going on. Gavin Smith has parked that Corvette, not willing to go on any further in this race, was running severely off the pace, dead last in class. Not sure if he just didn't feel like racing or something else, because he could have made up some positions. There's plenty of time left in the race to make up positions. Either way, not feeling it tonight, has parked it. Waquid Wanja has also gone out of the race in the 15 prototype. Samuel Frazier also out of the race in the 35 prototype. Those two retired from the race a long time ago, and we're just getting back to them now. But as we were saying, Daytona doesn't seem to disappoint in racing, especially in these endurance racing settings. Is like we were saying, that this track is fantastic to watch, especially for GT racing, just sports car racing in general. The 24 Hours of Daytona is always a classic, even though that we're about to enter a brand new era for the 24 Hours of Daytona, because I don't know if it's going to happen next year if they got pushed back a year, but we are about ready to introduce the hypercar into sports car racing, which should shake up the entire scape of how we view sports car racing. Is we're kind of going back to the old days of prototypes, where a GT could finish better than a prototype if it was had a better run. Think back to when Corvette won the 24 Hours of Daytona back a long time ago. I believe that was 2001 when they won that race overall.
Yeah, that was Dale Earnhardt was a member of that team.
The then Corvette powerhouse with Dale Earnhardt. That team was... I don't think there'll ever be a team quite like that Corvette team. I think both cars did well in that race.
Well, I mean, Corvette has dominated the world of GT racing for as long as anybody can remember. You're so used to, you flip on the channel to IMSA or back then American Le Mans. And you're so used to seeing Corvette running 1-2 because they had it figured out, man. It's the factory cars where the factory team was so quick, and those Corvettes they didn't have a weakness. It has changed somewhat now. You got other manufacturers that sit up at the top of the board. Porsche has made a name for themselves. They're running well. BMW up there as well. The factory teams, of course. The Porsche factory team probably sitting at the top of the throne now as of late, but just the dominating era back then from Corvette racing.
Dominating is putting it lightly, as they to win overall against. And now at that point in time, prototypes were fairly new. There wasn't a whole lot of them, especially in the Americas. A lot of them were in France. They originated in France, and you had Courage, and there was I think Conrad was the other one. I said that 2 weeks ago, and I haven't bothered to check whether or not that was Conrad. I think it was, but they also didn't have a very good run at Le Mans when they first came out and debuted their car. I believe that McLaren actually won overall that race, that those two debuted at Le Mans. But ever since then, prototypes have been the preferred car to win overall at these races. Now, with the hypercar coming in, that's going to change significantly, as technically speaking, they're not prototypes. They are going to have real-life counterparts that you can go and purchase. So, we're going to see possibly a production car back at the overall victory of the 24 Hours of Daytona and other races that happen throughout the world, and that could offer some very exciting racing, as Eric Blemmingrant's almost spun it into turn one. But you know, what's your overall opinion of the hypercar? Because I think it's going to be something special to watch.
Yeah, I mean that's honestly it's news to me. Like I said at the top of the show here, it's I'm a fan of IMSA, of multi-class racing, but I don't know all the ins and outs. You know, the in-depth. I don't have an in-depth knowledge of it. I sit down and I enjoy watching it. So that hypercar is actually news to me. But if it's like what you say it's going to be, then yeah, that's a huge twist, because as you said, you're used to the prototypes bringing home the overall victory. You know, so. If something new like a production car that's available to the general public to purchase is going to be up there contending for the overall race win, that's something new and exciting to look forward to.
Since you mentioned that, I'm going to give a brief rundown of what the hypercar is in case people are not aware of it. The hypercar so the LM hypercar is going to replace the LMP1 category in most of the world's racing, and that includes the World Endurance Championship. Toyota has been the forefront of that effort. They had announced their car, I believe, mid-2018, as the leader spins it around, the overall leader in Prototype 2. Dan Neese has spun it in turn 1. The track temps proving difficult even for the race leader. He does have a 38-second advantage, though, so he gets back going. Thankfully, he won't lose the lead. He's not in jeopardy of that, but if the lead was any closer, we have to be careful. Not everyone is safe, as you see the prototype leader, the overall leader, is looping it around.
Yeah, that's I think you hit the nail on the head. It's track temp combined with that's a pretty bumpy. That's a bumpy corner, turn one. So you hit one of those bumps in just the wrong way, and you try to turn in too aggressively, or you're too aggressive with the deceleration and the throttle, and you can loop it just like he did. But does a good job of locking it down, not hitting anything, and he's off and away once again.
Speaking of looping it around, Shaven Loveridge in the 72 Ford GT also looped it around, coming onto the speedway section of the race. He is parked it on the apron and is actually going to tow it. We don't know if that's going to be a retirement from this race, but he has come down pit road. And in that same breath, here comes the GT2 leader, Brody Gardner, making his first stop of the race. So the leader has come down. The other three drivers in class are running. They've already made their stops, so they are back running on the racetrack. The leader in GT3 is now coming down pit road. That's Jordan Malcolm. So the GT cycle of pit stops has kicked off, and it's about to end.
We'll see here if he uses his fast repair to get that damage fixed. Looks like he will. Not quite. Doesn't look like he's used it. Maybe not going to bother with it, as it didn't. It certainly didn't seem to be slowing his pace down at all. He is your leader in class by 2 laps, so quite a comfy position for him to be in.
Indeed, that's a massive lead. We at this stage in the race, we saw that Dan Neese won overall last time out with a 2-lap lead, but that was at the end of the race, and he is nowhere close to that 2-lap lead at the moment, as he is still only about 41 seconds ahead of Daniel Michel, who has inherited second place over, I believe, Justin Erb has come down pit road again. So the prototype 2 cycle of stops might also be kicking off, as Justin Erb has not really sure where he is at the moment. There he is. He's running on the track. He's had 2 stops this race. And he's now fallen back into 6th overall and in class. So now that all the GT drivers have gone through their cycle, we are actually looking at Scott Rankin, who is making his stop. And now Jordan Malcolm has now come out back onto the racetrack. He is still on the pit limiter. The pit limit is going to be on until the very end of the pit wall that you see on your screen now. They have elected to have the pit limiter go all the way down to the end, so no one has the chance of hitting the wall on the exit. He's now off the limiter, back onto the racing surface. Should see him continue to have that massive lead that he came down pit road with. And that appears to be nice and tidy for everybody.
F1 tomorrow, Anthony. And it's going to be, polar opposites. It's going to be interesting. We're at the Nürburgring, back at it again after, I think, there's a 7-year break. And it's predicted to either rain or be very, very cold.
Yeah, we could see some snow, as one birdie told me.
Yes, I've heard that's in the forecast as well. But, I mean, no matter what happens, it's going to make for an interesting race, because if you've got really cold air temperature, you're going to have a cold track temp as well. And a cold track temp means it's going to be tough to get those tires warmed up on the formation lap and for the first couple of laps. So we could be in for a pretty wild start tomorrow morning.
Indeed, we could. The Eiffel Grand Prix, which is going to be held at the Nürburgring, like you said, for the first time since 2013, when Sebastian Vettel, I believe, I think it was one of the Red Bulls. It was either Vettel or it was
Vettel. I think it was his first time winning his home Grand Prix. That was a big day for him. I could be wrong on that, so correct me if I am wrong, but it was a big day for him.
It was significant in some way. I believe it was his first German Grand Prix win. He was driving for Red Bull at the time, so very different circumstances for that driver. And I think we actually have a shot of having the exact same podium that we had in 2013 happening in 2020, as I believe the podium was Vettel, Raikkonen, and Grosjean. That is a stretch, given the position that Raikkonen and Grosjean is in, and that's also a stretch given the state of Ferrari at the moment. However, Vettel looking for high hopes in his home Grand Prix. Also, somebody else's home Grand Prix, Mick Schumacher making a start in the Eiffel Grand Prix. Also, just got word, Nico Hülkenberg is going to be making a start.
Hülkenberg will be in the racing points, but I don't think Mick Schumacher will actually be racing. I think he was just supposed to be in the car for free practice 1.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I don't think he'll be on the grid for tomorrow's race. But we've seen that a couple times earlier this season, where we've got some of the the program drivers coming in for free practice 1 and running some laps just to kind of get their bearings, get out of the F2 cars for a little bit, get a feel for Formula 1. Saw that earlier in the season as well. I think it was Silverstone with some other F2 drivers that were in the team's programs, but still exciting nonetheless for Mick.
Yep, seeing him out in the full-fledged Formula 1 car. If the last name sounds familiar, it should. That is a relative, I believe, the son of Michael Schumacher.
Absolutely.
Who is the leader spins it again. Dan Neese spins it again in turn 1.
Same place, yeah. I gotta think it's just the track temp is really the track temp's got to be playing a huge factor in that, because it's he didn't lock it up or anything. just hit those bumps the wrong way. It could just be an element of fatigue too. You know, he's not been battling. He's got a lead of 40 seconds over Daniel Michel, so might be just an element of fatigue. He's bored up there by himself, so it's easy to lose a little bit of focus whenever you're riding around, not really in a battle for any kind of position like that for an hour and 10 minutes.
Indeed, yeah. You get that sense of, I am in the lead, I must go fast all the time, and you really could back off a little bit, to be honest with you. You got 40, now down to 34 seconds after that spin, so you only lost 6 seconds on that exchange. That being said, though, it's pretty wild that you can recover from a spin like that and still have over half of a minute lead over second place, which is something also kind of unique to this kind of racing. As endurance racing, it's not really about where you finish as much as it is about if you finish the race. As one of my good friends put it to me once before, I was just starting to get into multi-class racing, as endurance racing specifically. Going this distance, no matter how far the distance, especially if it's something longer than 3 hours, knowing that you were able to finish the race, even though that you might not have finished particularly well, neither on the lead lap, is again in turn one he spins it.
Man, I've really got to wonder what is going on there.
I can't think he's doing this on purpose. There's no way he is.
No, surely not. It's just too hot that time. He got in there too hot, carried too much speed through there. It's been something different for the past 3 times, so yeah, not very curious as to what's going on.
Not at all. Something
lead is down now to 34 seconds, so definitely wants to get that figured out.
Something is amiss on that 14 team, I should say, as Daniel Michel is actually now down to 29.5 seconds back to the leader, Dan Neese. And if Dan keeps having these spins in turn 1, I don't think he'll do it a third time. I say that, and then he might do it a third time. Which,
well, he technically has. We've seen him spin 3 times in that same corner already today, so
that is true.
We're looking at a 4th if he were to do it again. We hope he doesn't. We would prefer that he doesn't. You hate to see that lead get evaporated like that, but it's certainly been cut down to a somewhat uncomfortable margin.
Speaking of battle on the racetrack, this battle for 4th place between these two prototypes of Blemengranz and Justin Erb is now heating up. As actually, I say that, Blemengranz coming down pit road, so the second cycle of prototype pit stops looks like it's going to happen, meaning they still have to make at least one more stop before the race is over, as Blemengranz brings that number 99 machine down pit road, that very red, white, and blue livery that I actually really like this livery too. But I still think that I'm partial to that rough livery on the Porsche. As he brings it down pit road, Dan Neese did not spin it around in turn 1 that time around, so he will...
He had a moment, though. He had a moment. The back end tried to swap ends on him. He was able to catch it.
If I were him, I would be considering backing off a little bit going into turn 1. You're not really going to lose much of anything. You're actually still gaining time on second place. I would, if I were him, given the fact that those tires are probably not in the best of ways at the moment, not necessarily a bad idea to bring it a little bit slower going in turn 1, as that's a thing that, he almost loses it going onto the speedway section.
That would have been a race ender with that wall right there. Mind you, he does have a faster pair in his back pocket, so that would have been able to fix him up pretty quick, but still not something you want to do. A big lockup ahead of him from Justin Herbe going into the bus stop.
Yeah, he's actually gone off into the grass. He's going to try and save it. He does. Justin Erb with a fantastic save coming back onto the speedway section, but now you got to think that now's the time I come down and get some tires. It's about that time, and nope, he's actually going to stay out.
He was last on pit road. I don't think he has. Oh no, he has made a stop. Lap 24. So about 20 laps ago, he was last on pit road. So no real cause to come to pit road in terms of tires, or in terms of fuel, but maybe tire wear is a bit of an issue this time around. I mean, he's sliding that thing quite a bit.
Certainly, tire wear is the issue for the 14. He's had a couple moments where it could not be nothing but tires. As getting into the late stages, we're past halfway, or about to be past halfway throughout this race, as Dan Neese continues to try and have that bit of an issue. An hour and 16 and a half minutes to go in this Daytona Continental. That's I think it was the 18th annual Daytona Continental. Has not been part of the USRA American Le Mans Series until this season. I need a fact check on that, but given that this series kind of took form in the early stage or the late stages of 2020, then I would assume that has not been a thing going since. I think it was just a standalone race for these drivers, but now part of the American Le Mans Series for the USRA. So far, been a pretty good showing for a lot of these drivers. Dan Neese, again, continues to lead the way. Daniel Michel runs in second place in Prototype 2. Kevin Hurley is going to be in the third position. That makes up your podium in Prototype 2, as Hurley locks it up a little bit. A battle, not for position, but to get around a slower car. That is the leader in GT2. That is Brody Gardner, who, despite his hardships last time at Sebring, a commanding lead in that number 18 Corvette with about an 8-second lead over this man, Horatio Vallejos. I got his last name down, and I had forgotten how to pronounce his first name, so I do apologize for that. In the greatest livery on the racetrack, the rough livery on that Porsche, and rough is probably one of the more niche Porsche body cars you can possibly be a fan of, and the fact that this livery exists makes me a very happy man.
Yeah, one of the more common, I don't know what you call those, parody brands. I don't know what the technical name is there, but you've got Rough. There's a few others out there too that make cars very similar to the actual counterparts. Rough obviously being the most common. That proves my point. As I can't remember, I know there's others out there, but I can't remember the names of them. But Rough being the most notable, and you're absolutely right. That livery definitely shines pretty bright out here today. That's another one of my favorite things about the Daytona 24, seeing all the different liveries and how brightly they shine whenever the lights come on here at Daytona. They look so good going through this portion of the track with the Ferris wheel in the background right there. Awesome camera shot.
It is. It's something special for the broadcast team every time that they have the 24 hours, because they get to watch it for all the 24 hours and be probably the closest to these cars that anyone can be, really. Even the fans. The fans, though, get a pretty good seat in the infield. They're allowed to park their campers almost right against the retaining walls almost, and you could walk right up to it. And and like I touched on it earlier, though, given that all those, the lights, the way that the whole track kind of gets enclosed on itself, especially if it rains. I know that drivers aren't really fans of the rain, but being a fan watching the race, it's definitely fun to watch these drivers in the rain, especially the cars that have the LED light strips that go across sometimes they go across the pillars of the sides of the car. I know the Ford GTs have the light that go in the middle on the pillar in the middle of the car, which I have driven a Ford GT in Assetto Corsa, a completely different game, but I raced in an endurance league that had Ford GTs in the field, and I elected to try.
Dan's gone around exiting Anthony. He's gone around exiting the bus stop. Oh, he locked it up in time, but I thought he was in serious trouble there.
That could have been serious trouble. I'm glad you cut me off. That was.
You got a caution on the racetrack.
Full course is out. That might be for Nice.
It very well could have been, yes.
So we have a full course yellow, or a second full course yellow, and that eliminates the huge lead that Nice had. This benefits Andrew Jamilin, who had just made his pit stop and now is back on the racing surface. Some of these drivers haven't made their stop, notably the leader Nice, Michelle, and Hurley. They haven't made their stops yet, but these three drivers in the that make up the rest of the running order on the P2 category, Herb, Jamilin, and Blemengranz, they have already made their stops, so they will inherit the leads of the race, as Nice will have to come down pit road to get his service, because you know that he's getting close to the end of his service time on fuel, and the way those tires are handling, you know he doesn't want to stay out there too much longer on those tires.
Yeah, this could certainly make this last hour of racing a little bit spicy for us, because the way things were going, the closest battle on track was going to be for the GT2 lead, and that was separated by about 8 seconds. But now, I mean, no class leader is safe. Every class leader, first and second, are on the same lap as one another. GT3, Jordan Malcolm and Travis Stephens, they're both on the same lap. You've Brody Gardner and Horatio Vallejos, they're both on the same lap as well. They're the only two that are 2 laps down to the overall leader. And then you've got 4 cars. You're going to have the whole class of P2s on the lead lap, I think, at the end of this caution period. Because as you said, Andrew Jamilin and Eric Blumenkranz were both on pit road before that full course yellow came out. So they will get the lap back. They should be at the tail end, though, Anthony. They'll be at the tail end of the entire pack, so they will have some driving to do to get back up to the front, but very beneficial for a lot of cars here.
That is true. Justin Erb is going to get the biggest advantage out of all of that, as he is actually on the lead lap still in the race, and so he's going to probably, I would dare say, inherit the lead of the race after we cycle around, coming around the kink at the moment. We have a couple more retirees to note. Josh Patterson has packed up the Audi and is heading back to the garage. He is not willing to race anymore. I believe he might have done that a while ago. We're just now getting to it. Andy McDowell also has retired the car. That looks like it was a recent retiree, though, because Shane Loveridge has not passed them on the racetrack yet. He's still running on the racetrack. He's actually in pit road at the moment, but still running 15th overall, 4th in class. So he's still got a ways to go there.
So the pit road should have the green light on this time. It looks like it does. Yep, the leaders are coming down now, so gonna see, we've got Nice, Michelle, Blumenkranz, as we predicted, does stay out. He will get his lap. He won't get a wave around, though. That's the thing. So he's gonna be at the front of this group. The 99 is. Andrew J. Mullen did come into pit, so he won't get any sort of lap back, but the 99 is going to be back on the lead lap, but he's going to be right behind the safety car. So curious as to how that will work. If they get the one to go, do they get the wave around, or do they just restart where they line up? So
I believe they do. Something that surprises me is Justin Erb actually pitted. He did not stay out, given the fact that he wasn't on that old of tires. So he's come down pit road for another stop. Hurley is down pit road for another stop. He was one of those drivers that needed to make the stop anyway. The biggest surprise that I thought was Jay Millen, because he had just made a stop. It was actually just coming back onto the racetrack, so opting once again to come down pit road. I don't know. That might have been an okay strategy, given the fact that these tires, they don't seem to last very long, and you definitely want to have as big of an advantage as you possibly can. He's now going to be running in 6th overall, as he's still a lap down to the leaders. Actually on the tail end of the lead lap, given the relative, but that's going to update when we cross the line. Kevin Hurley back on track. In fact, all the other prototype drivers are just now coming back on track. Vallejos inherits the lead, which...
yeah, Brody Gardner, I think, was the only GT2 that pit.
That's... I mean, they can go a lot further than the prototypes can. The prototypes are just now coming to their second stop. I don't think that the GTs can make it the rest of the way on one tank of gas. I think they have to come back in one more time, although this time under the safety car might give them an opportunity to save a little.
Yeah, the caution throws a wrench in things for sure. We'll have to see. I think they might be okay because we're gonna go green. We're not going green this time. It'll probably be one more time around. Be about an hour of racing left. Hour green flag racing left.
Daniel?
I don't think anybody that pit under this safety car, I don't think will need to pit again.
I don't think so. I think that all the prototype drivers are good to go. The only questions we have are the GTs because Malcolm didn't pit, Stevens didn't pit, Rankin didn't pit. The only one of the GTs that did pit was the Corvette of Gardner, which still baffles me, but yellow lights are still on the safety cars. We make our way around again. We'll see if any of the other GTs opt to come down. It's the 72 if Leverage is still out.
Yeah, so this it jumbles up the order a little bit because when the safety car came out, I thought I saw Travis Stephens be on the same lap as Jordan Malcolm in GT3, but it would appear that Malcolm is a lap ahead. Is looking like he's coming to pit road. This is the GT3's pit lap this time.
Here they come.
So maybe not quite the battle that we were thinking we were going to have for GT3.
Not quite. It's still about a... Well, actually, between Malcolm and Stevens, it's still a second, so... Oh, it looks like that Stevens had a little bit of issue getting into his pit box. Valacio stays out, but Landenberg came in. So Landenberg opting to pit. Valacio...
Robbie Gardner back in. I wonder if Gardner pit the wrong lap.
Sorry, Vallejos. I've been saying that wrong. Vallejos.
I wonder if Brody pit the wrong lap. Because he was the only GT that came in on that first lap.
They do seem to stretch it out. That much I do know. And that seemed a little bit weird to me as there are wave arounds, as you see. One of
the wave arounds back there. So that should put, Eric Blumenkrantz and Andrew J. Mullen back on the lead lap in their class. They will have enough time to catch the pace car before they're released back to green flag racing. Hopefully.
Porsche pace lights are out. We'll be going back to green flag racing this lap. To set it short, we really don't have a good grasp on where people are going to be running at the end of this race, to be honest, but we do know one thing. Daniel Michel has inherited the Prototype 2 lead, which that happened on pit road. Michel had a much quicker stop than the 14 of Nice. He actually had about a second quicker stop. It was 55 seconds flat for the 8. It was 55.8 seconds for the 14. Justin Erb had the fastest stop out of all the prototypes, a 37.2. So definitely I don't think took tires, which is something that was to be expected as he had just pitted. So he's out just filling it up with fuel to make sure that he is good to go to the end of the race. And Kevin Hurley is back on the lead lap. He is going to be starting in the 4th place position in the Prototype 2 category. And that is going to be a interesting battle, I should say. On the wave around are some of the prototype drivers that are now on the lead lap. So all the prototypes are on the lead lap. And the rest of the GTs that were a lap down to their class leaders are going to be back on the lead lap in their respective classes. Vallejos is the leader in GT2. He's going to be inheriting the lead as he did not pit. Gardner and Landenberg pit under that last cycle. Malcolm, Stevens, and Rankin make up your GT3 leaders. And, we're in the late stages of the race. We've got a new leader in all 3 classes, barring the GT3 class. What are we going to expect for this last hour and 2 minutes?
Chaos. This puts everybody, especially our P2 class, everybody that's left running in P2 is now on the lead lap. So it evens the playing field for everybody. They're going to go hard at it here on this restart. Same with our GT classes. GT2 is all on the same lap. They're all one lap down to the class leaders. There's two guys on the same, the top two, and GT3 are on the same lap. This is going to be wild. Buckle up your seatbelts, boys.
We're going to set them green for 1 hour, 1 minute, and 45 seconds remaining when they hit the line. And it's going to be Michelle getting a very good jump off of Dan Neese. Dan Neese, though, has wholesale the fastest car on the circuit. However, he's had some issues getting into turn one. No issues this time, although he's got Justin Erb all over his rear wing, trying to get the advantage as the prototypes come through the International Horseshoe yet again. They're all right nose to tail with each other. And this has been kind of a reset for all these drivers as they're all in the lead lap. The huge lead that Neese had going into this yellow flag period, I think he was the one who brought out that safety car as there were no other issues on the racetrack that we saw. So now he's going to try and go back for the lead going on to the speedway section momentarily. What can Neese do? Does he have the advantage on the straights? We're about to find out.
Yeah, he's going to use as much of the slipstream as he can. He's going to have to watch the monitor inside his car looking out back because he's got Justin Erb breathing down his neck as well. But I think Neese is, you touched on it, he's flat out faster than the rest of these guys are. You see him in the slipstream. Michelle doing everything he can to make sure he doesn't get the run up. Good show of patience from Dan through the bus stop.
Whoa, they all are wide.
They're all wide, yep, and that's going to open up the door for the 23. He's going to split them. They're going to go 3 wide. He doesn't have enough. He's thinking about it. He's thinking about it.
Oh, he might have a go down into turn one. Are we going to see 3 wide into turn one? It looks like Neese is going to wisely back out of this. Doesn't want any part of it. But
Yep.
It looks like that Erb has got to run down to the inside, going into turn one. What can he do? Don't overdrive it. A little bit of a lockup, but he makes the pass.
Well done from the 23, taking advantage of both the 8 and the 14 going wide in the bus stop. He's got, there's a battle for second going on. This is his chance to maybe build that gap a little bit. What does he have? We haven't really shown his pace. Dan Neese gets by with ease gets by Michelle with ease. So Justin Erb, first time we've seen him out front. Going to show his pace, a little bit of a lockup into the West Horseshoe, but gets through fine, and away he goes.
And in that same breath, though, here comes the advancing Dan Neese. He's gotten around Michelle, now trying to get his lead back. Going on to the speedway section of the racetrack as Erb has a bit of a moment there with his connection, kind of blinked out of the session for a moment, back on to the everyone's view, I should say. As this battle for the overall lead continues, as it actually is going to be a battle down into the bus stop. What can Neese do? Down to the inside, gonna go through the bus stop, tries to get slowed down on the exit, and that's a little bit of a wide moment, but he's going to inherit the lead of the race back again from Justin Erb, but I think he might have...
He's got to slow down. Yep, he's got to slow down.
He's gotten caught for cutting the course, so now here comes Erb down the front stretch. And he's going to get the pass done down the front stretch.
He's still got. He's still going to have to fight off Dan on the inside. There he goes.
Oh, there's contact!
Little hip and a shoulder there from Dan Neese. He's going to get by cleanly.
And now he's going to scurry away. I don't think that Erb's going to be too happy about the way that turn one went, though.
That's just, that's just product of the corner. A little bit of contact there happens every now and again. A little bit of argy-bargy is pretty par for the course through turn one. But, of course, Erb probably won't, be, as you said, be too pleased with how that pass was completed. But I don't think it was intentional at all.
Now, just hard racing between these two drivers. No one willing to give an inch. And, when you have a shot at the lead, especially the way that this race has gone, you've gone an hour and a half, and now you're right against the guy who has been flat out dominating the race thus far. Why not have a shot? Try to take the lead back, maybe make him a little bit nervous going in turn one. We've seen him have some issues by himself going in turn one, so that wouldn't be too abnormal to see him have a bit of a lockup going in, trying to defend his position. But give credit to Justin Erb, he's found himself in a very commanding second place, I should say, as he's kind of gotten away from this 3-car battle for third, now between Michelle, Blemming-Grants, and Hurley, as they've gotten away from Jamelin. We see these prototypes, throughout all these hours of racing that they have been some of the most spread out of these drivers, and now they're all right nose to tail with each other. It's kind of interesting to see how they're getting along with each other, sharing the same bit of real estate with each other. As Hurley tries to go on Blumen Grant's not quite to the outside, turn one, sends the 21 in. Can't really do it, but he's going to look for the crossover. Can't quite get the run out.
Wow, he did get the run out through the S's. Going to look to the inside. International Horseshoe. There he goes. Late on the brakes. And might be looking at a nudge. Well done from Hurley. Getting the fifth spot. Excuse me.
Fifth spot.
Nope, fourth spot.
It is the fourth spot. He gets it. And this is probably the most colorful car on the race circuit, I should say, of all of these drivers. The number 21 Hatsune Miku LMP2, this is the Lara chassis. We found out what the engine manufacturer is, an update on that. These are Cosworth engines that they're running in these cars. We didn't quite know what they were at the start of and at the end of Sebring, but have since looked up and now know. So,
battle for GT2. Tyler Landenberg, Brody Gardner. Landenberg actually got by Brody on that restart, and Brody has since reeled him back in. It's the battle of the Corvettes. Factory versus customer teams here.
Yeah, the factory team you'd think would have the advantage, but Landenberg won the last time out, looking to have another great finish today, looking for another victory as he's gotten away from Garner for the moment. That could all change in a heartbeat, as these drivers don't seem to want to get away from each other, and we always see Corvette versus Corvette here at Daytona, and today is no different, as they're trying to have a go, but not quite.
Oh, a really good run through the bus stop from Brody. Maybe a little bit of a cut. Doesn't look like a slowdown's coming, but that's going to set him up for a pass in the slipstream right there. Oh, it's a bump draft.
Oh, pushing the other Corvette down into the turn. Oh, they're still making contact. This is a bit of interesting racing going on as there's contact between these two drivers. I think that maybe
this doesn't want to make the move too early, I think. Here he goes. He's looking there. Oh, it's a tight on the exit on the brakes. Oh, early.
Both of these cars don't look very happy through the first turn. Now they're going to go through the S. What's going to happen?
He's in the grass. Brody's in the grass. He's going to hang on to it.
And he does.
What a show being put on from these two vets. I think Brody, the reason we saw the pushing was he didn't want to make the pass too early, Anthony, because then he would have had to fight off Tyler going back down into turn one.
That is true, but man, he ran the entire way down the front stretch and even through the turns, the final two turns of this circuit, he ran right on the back end of that Corvette, was basically pushing him all the way down, and just at the last minute pulled out, and that could have ended a disaster for both these drivers, but Landenberg still gets out with the lead of the race. Somehow, some way, these two didn't make contact in turn one, even though both cars looked very unhappy.
Yeah, he just got such a good run through the bus stop. He's got a huge run off. I wonder if there's a slowdown penalty there. A massive run for Brody on Tyler and goes by him with ease. Oh! Into the bus stop. Yeah, a little bit of a block on the braking zone through the bus stop. Back to the point.
They are testing the limits of that off track at the exit of the bus stop, and I think that Landenberg slowed down to serve the rest of his slowdown penalty from the bus stop the lap before. That's what gave the lead back to Gardner. So Gardner and the factory Corvette team now back in commanding lead of the race. Landenberg in the privateer team running back in the second place position. Both drivers with one heck of a run going on at the moment, as it looks like Brody kind
of them locking up.
Wow, they are.
Horatio locked up going into one.
And Vallejos trying to catch the two Corvettes. The Corvettes don't have that big of an advantage at this track as they did at Sebring, because the only Porsche in the field this week is running still within earshot of these two drivers, and he's trying to catch up should something happen between these Corvettes, which the way they've been racing, that might be a possibility that these two will face later on, as they have both been racing hard for this position. As we look back to our GT3 lead, looks like Jordan Malcolm has pulled out quite a bit of an advantage between himself and Stevens, who is about 4 seconds back now going through the kink of the infield, and Rankin is 23 seconds back from him. Those are the only 3 GT3s running on the track. A bit of a big contrast from the last time we were out, considering that most of those drivers were running at the end of the race, and now we only see 3 running so far.
It's an awesome recovery drive from Rankin in that 156 AMG Merc. Remember, he was one of the cars on the roof on the opening lap, exiting those S's. He is now back on the lead lap in class and running third. A great recovery drive for him.
Considering all that happened at the beginning, there is nothing to be ashamed of with a third place in class at the moment. It looks like everyone's kind of settling into a bit of a run. There's a battle between Herb and Michelle for the second place position in Prototype 2. There's still a big battle going on for the GT2 lead. We're going to take a step aside for a commercial break. We'll be back to you momentarily. You won't miss anything. We're going to go FRN side by side. You're watching the USRA American Le Mans Series from Daytona, Sound and Vision on the Flatout Racing Network. We'll be right back after this message. Welcome back, everyone. We are watching from afar our battle for the second place position in Prototype 2, the lead class of this race, who is in a battle between Michelle and Herb, those two still battling on the racetrack pretty hard. This is the closest battle we've got on the racetrack at the moment. For those of you watching around the world, it is been a fantastic race so far. A quick recap: we've had 2 full course yellows, one at the opening lap and one just a few moments ago, as it looks like that Michelle got a bit of a lockup going into turn 1, has actually slowed down the efforts of Justin Herb. This battle continues on for P2. My name is Anthony McCurry. I'm joined alongside of Logan Brakey, and Logan, we've had a very good race so far. Any takeaways that you've had so far as we're about 45 minutes left in this race?
Yeah, I mean, summed up pretty well. Typical Daytona style racing for multi-class endurance. It's the biggest factor that we've talked so much about is how hot the track has been. It's been a factor all race long. We've seen guys slipping and sliding, and honestly, it was probably the reason for our most recent safety car involving overall leader Dan Neese. So he's now since driven out to an 8-second lead, and quite the battle that we've been watching for second.
Indeed it is, and now we're side by side between Mitchell now, as we've been told his name is Mitchell, between Herb and Mitchell, as Mitchell trying to get the run. He's actually been passed by Herb, so give the position to the 23 Acura team, now trying to pull away, and it looks like that maybe Herb's got the faster car of the two of them, but now he has got to be the better car of these two for the next 44 minutes or so, and that's no small task, as now he's gotten hounded right again by that number 8 machine is going into turn 1. It looks like that not going to quite have a run, although he looks like he got a better corner in. Let's see if he gets a better corner out.
Yeah, when you've got 2 cars, 2 drivers that are so evenly matched on pace, it all comes down to who gets through the infield the best at Daytona, because you can rely so heavily on that slipstream when you get onto the oval NASCAR portion of the track. It just pulls you right back in. So you see Herb really making some time through the infield. Corner exit, corner entry, corner exit seems to be his stronger suits right now. A little bit of a slide, but this is where you got to make all your time. But he doesn't have that big enough gap, because Mitchell's going to reel him right back in as soon as we get onto the oval here.
Ooh, he has a bit of a slide coming out onto the oval, so now Herb's going to pull away a bit, and Mitchell falls back to about a second by all said and done. Although it looks like that Mitchell's got a faster car going down the straight. He's got a bit of the tow coming in from the slipstream of the 23, and he's trying. Oh, he's gonna have a big run down into the bus stop. Locked it up going in.
I'm not sure that was intentional. There was quite a hefty lock up there, and that's going to be the gap that could decide this battle, at least for the time being.
Indeed. Now it's about a second and a half as opposed to half a second. That was a major lock. I don't know if that was intentional, like you said, or not. I don't know if that was not intentional, as you said, or that was. That was an almighty lunge if it was. And, you know, you're getting into desperation mode at this point. You know that maybe he's got a faster car and you're just trying to get back in front so you can keep away from that position, but definitely not the issue you want to be forcing this stage, as you still got over 30 minutes to go in the race. As we continue to run around this circuit, this beautiful circuit, as we've said throughout the night. If you're joining us from anywhere else in the world, I know it's about midday Sunday in Australia. We have quite a few Australian drivers. We also have quite a few Australian fans that join in for our race broadcast when we do these races, and we'd like to welcome you. And we also have a few European fans that stay up or get up early in the morning to watch this race, as it is very early in most of Europe. It's about 4, almost 5 a.m. in some of the places in the EU, and I believe that is a little bit earlier than I'm willing to get up, I will admit.
Yeah, you and me both.
I have done it. to watch some Formula One broadcasts top to bottom when they did them for the unknown reason why Formula One raced at 1 p.m. in the UK or the EU, and I'm not exactly sure why, because us American fans were like, how dare you? So I had to get up at 6:30 to watch broadcast top to bottom, but still, if you're joining us from those regions, welcome. It is about 4 minutes till 11 p.m. here on the eastern United States. As we continue to run, you wouldn't know it based on the track. It's very daylight on the racing surface. When we usually see these races take place in iRacing, it's usually a day to night race or just a plain night race. But today we are fully outdoors in the dry day weather, and we have been so since the beginning of the race. Sebring was opposite to what we normally see in Sebring. Sebring was a early morning to slightly less early morning, but going from night into daylight, as today's race has been completely sunbathed. I mentioned the other crown jewel races in this series, this being the first of 3, this being, I think, the longest out of them. I might be wrong on that one. I'm pretty sure that one of them is actually the same length as this race. It's being 2.5 hours. The other 3, we are going to Indianapolis. That is the next crown jewel race on the schedule. Not exactly sure when that is happening. I have to get a look at the schedule again, and I looked at it briefly, but have not since then. That will be the second crown jewel race. The third one being Laguna Seca in California, a very historic track. A lot of records happened there, and we're going to see these drivers take on the very twisty desert circuit of Laguna. And then the final one will be in Georgia for the Road Atlanta circuit. That I believe is another one of these 2.5 hour races. I'm pretty sure. I don't see why that wouldn't be, as it's traditionally known as the Petit Le Mans circuit for the 10-hour race that the WeatherTech series run in real life.
Challenging circuit, that Road Atlanta.
It is.
It's you have the endurance championship for the U.S. rather, IMSA championship wraps up with Petit Le Mans, 10-hour event at Road Atlanta, and it's a very, very, very short circuit in comparison to a lot of the others that they visit. But that first sector, those S's are so challenging, and that's what you set the car up for whenever you head there, because you've got those S's and the double right-handers leading onto the massive straights, run down to the chicane, right-hander, and that's your lap. So a challenging circuit, but most of the challenge comes in those S's.
I took the opportunity. This wasn't an online race. I set this up myself because I wanted to see what it would be like. But I have several mods on Assetto Corsa that make a lot of the endurance racing possible. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing a battle between Jay Millen and Kevin Hurley. Hurley, I think, had a moment somewhere on the racetrack. He's actually made a... Never mind, that's not another stop. He's still on his 2 stops. I think he had a moment. But I have several mods that make the endurance racing in that sim a bit more realistic, given a day and a night cycle that is actually pretty realistic, and tracks that have night lighting, which did not come standard in the box copy of that particular sim. But I raced at Road Atlanta. I wanted to see what it would be like. It gave me the option to race with 50 cars on circuit, so I was like, well, why not? I put 50 of the finest mix of prototypes and GT cars on the circuit, and decided to see what a full circuit would be like, as we see Hurley take the position back from Jay Millen. Pretty cut and dry down the front stretch, and now we're going to see if the 65 has a run. He does, and he gets in the back of him.
Unintentional there. I think it's so easy to do, Anthony. You wouldn't believe, you get in the slipstream of a car on that braking zone, and the slipstream just sucks you up. You're trying to close up as much as you can. Yeah, it's so tough to follow somebody into turn 1 here.
It is, and that, I don't know, that he's having a bit of another lockup. I don't know if he's trying to get the position back the old-fashioned way by just simply running it in and hoping it sticks, or if he really has a problem with that 65, is that does not look in a good way. I don't know how much aero damage there is, but it might struggle down the stretches. Ooh, we definitely think that Hurley's got a bit of an issue, as he almost went up and slapped the outside retaining wall, was able to keep it going, and it looks like that battle is over. Unless Jay Millen tries something in the bus stop.
Yeah, damage could definitely be taking a factor here, taking a toll on Andrew's machine. That nose damage could be quite detrimental, especially when you've got so much of a lap spent on this part of the track right here in the oval. It'll really hinder a guy's progress.
Indeed, and we see the aero damage take out a lot of drivers' contention, as you need that top end speed in order to stay competitive. You can do pretty well in the infield, but top speed on the outer circuit, not quite there when not have good aero, as we see Hurley go a little bit wide in turn one, and that might be a result of some damage on the back end of that car, which would be a result of him getting ran in. Bleming Grant is on pit road, so this might be the last stop for the prototypes. I thought they could make it the rest of the way.
Yeah, that's one kind of question mark we've had all race long. We weren't entirely sure what the distance was going to be in terms of fuel mileage, so that's been a question mark all day long. As you said, Bleming Grant is now exiting the pits. I think it was just him that was on pit road. Obviously, Andrew J. Mullen in the 65 is there to repair that damage, but haven't seen anybody else come to pit road, including our overall leader, Dan Neese. So could have been an unscheduled stop for the 99.
Quite possibly. Not sure why. Didn't see anything too weird looking on our relatives, so just might be not feeling too happy with the way that car is handling. Decided to opt to come in and pit. The track conditions have not gotten any better, in case anybody was wondering. As we look at our track info, scratch that, it's gotten a little better.
It's cooled off by about 13 degrees.
Yeah, so a little better. Still blazing hot, but not quite so blazing hot, as the outside temp is still 83 degrees Fahrenheit for all of us Americans, and the wind speed, a paltry 9.5 second kilometers from the north. That is doing a number of these drivers on the stretches.
You deal with some of these higher track temps in the 24. You know, the morning track temps usually do get a little bit toasty. Cars will drive very similar to how we're seeing here tonight. A little slippy slidey, and that transition from night to day is really it really is a challenge for these cars. It really seems to upset the balance, because you kind of are in the middle of where your car is set up to do its best. You either set most cases, teams will set a car up for Daytona 24 hours. They'll set a car up for the night, because Anthony, you spend I believe it's like 18 hours driving during the day, and only 6 hours or something spent driving, or excuse me, 18 hours spent driving during the night, and 6 hours or so spent driving in the being bathed in sunlight. So, and that just is because it's so early in the year. The nights are so much longer than they normally are. Sun goes down pretty early, and as a result, and it results in a lot of nighttime driving. So the morning hours are so tough when you've got the 24-hour race going on, because it's right in between that balance of where the car is set up to handle its best.
Yeah, and you definitely want to have the car set to be where the most time is. I don't think it's quite 18 to 6. I think it's more something like, I would dare say 14 to 12. Put it that way. I think there's maybe a little less than 12 hours.
That does sound, I might have been overstretching.
Not 14 to 12, 14 to 10.
Yeah. That sounds, 18 might have been a little bit of a stretch. So, but I mean, regardless, it's out of the 24-hour races that we have on any endurance racing calendar. You know, you've got Daytona, Nürburgring, Spa, and Le Mans. those are the marquee events. Obviously there's 24-hour races elsewhere, but the ones that everybody has on their radar, the Daytona 24 hours is spent most of the time driving at night compared to the other four.
Indeed, that's the only 24-hour race other than the 24 hours of Dubai, which happens very early January. That happens. That could be mostly run at night, as well as this race. So those two, Dubai and Daytona, both have more day or more night rather than day. But the Dubai 24 is an all GT race. This is a prototype and GT race, so a little bit more in the way of different cars. That being said, though, the Dubai 24 is run with it's part of the VLN series or the 24-hour
Right.
series.
Yeah.
So it's a plethora of different cars that you can get, all the way down to some really classic cars. You could bring pretty much, if it fits within the regulations, you can bring it, and they usually do. As that race frequently sees almost, if not over, 100 cars. Same with the N24. This race was a bit less than what they have seen in the past. Still, 103 cars made the start of the race, which is mind-boggling when you consider that that's that many cars. I don't think would fit comfortably at this track. And
no, but I
Yeah.
mean, you take in the size that of it's the Nordschleife, so I mean, those cars fit very comfortably, and it still makes for a busy lap once that field gets spread out. It's a perfect field size.
Perfect field size for that track. Yeah, we usually see about 150 or so cars enter the N24, and most of them are in the lower class. The highest class car you can get in that race is GT3, as that is, I think, deemed the safest car that you can drive for 24 hours at the Nürburgring.
Certainly the most stable. Yeah, that would be my pick. Apps for that Leviathan of a racetrack.
Yeah, when we say Leviathan, if you're not familiar with the full Nürburgring, it is over 24 miles long. Probably one of the craziest circuits you will ever see anywhere, ever. They call it the Green Hell, and for good reason. Formula One, a long time ago, used to race on the full Nordschleife circuit, and stopped after, I believe it was Niki Lauda, had a horrific crash going up the hill, lost his car and smacked the wall, had severe burn damage to his face. He did, however, come back 6 weeks later and raced against the better judgment of several people, including his own team. However, the racer's spirit could not be broken, and he came back, and I believe he finished pretty well that season.
Did finish second to James Hunt in the championship.
Back in the, I believe that was 1972 when that happened.
Absolutely. Great movie by the name of Rush documents that championship battle. Fantastic film. One of my favorites. Meanwhile, we've got our overall leader has hit pit road. So this would be a good indication that we should see all of the P2 cars come on to pit road. And indeed, that is the case. Justin Erb now has hit pit road as well.
Kevin Hurley is very far behind, hasn't even hit the front straight yet, so he will be probably, I would assume, making his final stop at this stage in the race. It's only about 26 minutes to go, so you know for sure you can make it the rest of the way, and that is in fact what he's doing. He's bringing that number 21 down and getting his final stop. I believe that maybe he's thinking about just fuel, I don't know, tires might do you some good.
Yeah, there's still some racing left to do. You've still got 24 minutes left, so that's it's quite a few laps left remaining. So yeah, you definitely want to take tires here. During the day at Daytona, you only want a double stint if you're running at night. You see that a lot during the 24 hours. You'll double stint the tires during the night because the track just it's so cool. Track's got a lot of grip. You're not sliding around a lot, but today you're sliding around quite a bit. So definitely tires all the way around for all these guys. Daniel Mitchell back on the lead lap. I thought he might have stayed out and was the overall leader, but it is still Dan Neese that is your class and overall leader. Justin Erb right behind him. He's going into turn 6 right now. Dan Neese is in NASCAR 1. So a small gap right now between first and second overall.
If we look at their pit stops, Erb had a fantastic pit stop, a 32.1 compared to Neese's 48.8. So several seconds were taken out of the lead of the race after that round of stops. That, I don't know if he took tires. I didn't stay on him long enough to see if he did or not. I'll have to get confirmation later in the race. But given the lap times being ran at the moment, I think Dan Neese did take tires. That's why it took that extra, I'd say about 15 seconds or more than it did on pit road. And as you said, Mitchell running third now. I think he's made a stop. Yeah, he has to have.
Yes, let's see. His last stop came.
Yeah, he's on a.
He has pit. Yep, he has. He pit 2 laps to go. So this is where he will cycle out, currently in third, as you said. So it's pretty tight between our top 3. Dan presumably will create a gap. We've seen him do that all race long, but between first and second, it's pretty tight. Daniel can see Justin out his windshield, and that's all you ask for whenever you're in the closing stages of this race.
Yeah, that is a good feeling to see that you've come all this way. You're now over the 2-hour mark. You're on the downhill stretch. You've only got 24 minutes to go, and you can still see the leader, and you're on the same lap as him, which is even a better feeling for these drivers. And as we touched on it earlier, endurance racing is interesting and unique in the sense that just finishing a race is a victory in itself. So if you can be on the same lap as the guy leading the race and still see him, even better. And he's had some help, admittedly. The 2 full course yellows certainly helped in that effort. Still, though, anything can happen in these races, and don't discredit a run when you see it, because even though that we had 2 full course yellows, doesn't matter. You're still running a extremely competitive race, and to be this close to someone who had a 2-lap lead in Sebring, this is definitely a much better showing for Justin Erb, as he started that one facing the wrong direction in Sebring, and now he's bounced back and now running second here in P2.
And I keep referencing the Daytona 24-hour, but it's the race that we see here with these cars, so it's just perfect to draw comparisons from. But as you touched on it, you spend the last 2 hours just trying to get to the end of this endurance race, and then down in the closing stages, you've raced for 2 hours 10 minutes. There's 20 minutes left, and you've got 2 seconds separating you and the guy behind you after 2 hours 10 minutes of racing. And the same goes for 24 hours of racing. You're on hour 23, you have 30 minutes left, and you spent the entire race leading, but you've never been separated by more than 10 seconds. It's amazing how endurance racing plays out sometimes.
It is indeed. The different strategies that happen, the different things that happen throughout the night. We see a lot of incidents that happen with drivers going off track in the night. Fatigue, tiredness, just visibility not there. A lot of factors happen into going off track and having little moments throughout the night. Even the best of drivers have issues during the nights of endurance racing and 24-hour racing, to be precise. And it just doesn't matter how your skill level is. If you are tired driving some of the most powerful cars in the entire world around the circuit for over 24 hours, then things are bound to happen. And one of the things we haven't seen in this series and won't see in this series is driver changes, which is quite frequent in endurance racing, but not seeing it here tonight. We're on the GT2 leader, the Corvette entry of Brody Gardner, who has pulled a 35-second lead, I believe that's what it says on the relative, over his, not his teammate, but fellow Corvette, Tyler Landenberg. And Vallejos has about 5.5 seconds back to Landenberg. So a good showing for the Porsche. The Porsches did not show speed against the Corvettes at Sebring. They are running very better than they were. English is hard. They're running much better than they were last week, or not last week, but 2 weeks ago. And nice to see that Vallejos has got a third position, a podium spot for that GT2 Porsche.
Yeah, we saw that that battle was pretty heated there on the restart, and between Brody and Tyler and the Corvette counterparts. But obviously now has stretched out back to where we saw it more so before that last safety car. So, but we haven't seen a lot of variety in terms of class leaders. The biggest change, the most variety we've seen is from their GT3 class. We've seen maybe 4 different leaders. It's Jordan Malcolm now, but before then it was Sartaj Mann and Andy McDowell that were leading the charge as well. I saw maybe only three different lead changes in our GT3 class. That's the most that we've had out of all of the classes so far.
Indeed, that is the case, and Corvette looking for a second win tonight, not just in this series, but if you're just joining us, if you have come over from watching the WeatherTech series at the Charlotte Road Course, you will have seen that the number 3 team has taken overall victory over there in the wet, and Corvette in this series looking for its second win of the night. So congratulations to the Corvette factory team for their win at Charlotte. The first race that the WeatherTech series has had at Charlotte, and I gotta say, even though it was a rained out race, still a fantastic race. If you were watching it, I will admit I had it on the background, so I had 2 GT races going on at the same time, and I loved every minute of it. I am in heaven at the moment with 2 endurance races going on, and just love endurance racing. I love the concept of it. I love everything about it. And so I want to thank the USRA and FRN for allowing me to call this race alongside of Logan Brakey, who, Logan, in case you don't know, I mentioned it at the beginning of the program, but if you're just tuning in, Logan Brakey is no slouch when it comes to racing himself. He is a Ferrari driver in the Slipstream Formula One Championship and is joining me in the booth tonight. And Logan has had some pretty good luck. I believe he finished podium last time out.
Yep, P2 Austria last weekend. We've got Silverstone coming up on Monday. We've had one guy dominate the top step of the podium all season. We, meaning me and my Ferrari teammate, are doing our best to knock him off that top step at least once this season. But at this rate, he does pretty much have the Drivers' Championship pretty much locked up, barring some catastrophic events in the coming races. But yeah, it's been fun. Love Formula One racing. Obviously, love waking up early and watching that. Love watching the different the battles that go on throughout the field. The battle for the midfield. The battle to see who gets that third or second spot on the podium. And much is the same for Slipstream. So it's been fun, and I love driving those cars.
Yep, the Ferrari teammate being JD, who runs very much competitive with you, as Ferrari holds the Constructors' Championship in that series.
Yes.
And that is no small feat either, as AlphaTauri has brought both their cars for the last few weeks. So continuing that battle going, I assume that battle is going to happen all the way till you get to Sao Paulo.
Yes, yeah, that's what we expect, and it's not just a tight battle for us. I mean, we've got a 3-way tie. I believe it's between Haas, Renault, and Racing Point. I think are in a 3-way tie for 4th, I think, in constructors. So there's battles everywhere you look. You just got to know where to look, much like real F1. So it's exciting. We're halfway through the season, and we've got a good stretch of races coming up. Some challenging tracks, and I think we've found our pace late in the season, so it should be an exciting end to the season.
If you're looking forward to watching the Slipstream Formula One Championship, you can do that every Monday night on the Flatout Racing Network, as we're looking at Kevin Hurley, who has taken his car off track and to the pit road. Not feeling too well in that 21 car. I would assume that he might be retiring that car because there was no damage.
Yes, that would be my guess as well.
That happened in front of a battle between these two drivers. A battle for the second place position in P2. Justin Erb and Daniel Mitchell back together again. And in the late stages of the race, we got 15 minutes to go in the race. It's winding down for these drivers. They've gone 2 hours and 15 minutes, only 15 minutes left to go. You gotta be thinking some of these drivers are praying that the 15 minutes go by quicker rather than later. Some of these drivers could be the longest 15 minutes that they've had the entire race, as the battle for P2 second place is heating up. It's now down to right against each other. You can basically put a couple of GT cars between them and it would still be a competitive battle, because these two have been hounding each other all night long, and Erb gets a little bit of a wiggle coming out of the International Horseshoe going down towards the kink, but I don't know. Erb has got the faster car on the straights, it seems, but Mitchell seems to be right there, holding on to the slipstream of the number 23 Acura, and we should see this battle continue on all the way for the end of the race.
Yeah, and with 12 minutes, well, closer to 11 minutes remaining, this is only going to get hotter and hotter, this battle for second. As you said, Dan Neese is driven away. He's got up a lead of 13 seconds on these two, so all the money's on the table now to see who fills that second podium step.
And we are coming down, like we mentioned, to the end of this race. It's been a long run, and if you've been with us for the beginning, thank you for staying with us for the entire duration of this race. And we look forward to seeing you guys again, as we are not really sure of the future of the Flatout Racing Network's broadcasting of this series in question. There's a lot of question marks still up in the air about that, but when we find out, we will be sure to inform people, as right now the battle is heating up side by side between Erb and Mitchell. Erb drives it in, Mitchell trying to cross over in turn one. He's going to have a go!
A little poke of the nose from Mitchell again.
But still nothing there, so Mitchell has to fall back and try it again. We come around. It looks like that car is okay.
Yeah, I don't see any damage that really worries me on the nose of that machine. But I mean, even if there was, it's all said and done now. You've got to go for it. No time to pit and fix that damage, but nothing that should hinder him too much. Gets through West Horseshoe pretty okay. We'll see him line him up on the oval again to make another run at him. It'll be about a lap before we really see him close enough to make a move.
Desperation mode might have set in, as he's gotten wiggling around all the way trying to get out onto the speedway portion of the racetrack. As he's come this far, it's this close, and now he's just got to close the gap. It's about a 1.5 second gap at this point, as the clock is down to 12 minutes 10 seconds. We are about 11:24 p.m. on the East Coast. It's coming down to the end of this very long battle for these positions on the racetrack. Your leader overall, Dan Neese, still in the 14 machine, running a healthy 14.5 second lead over this battle for second place in the prototype category. Brody Gardner, who is now just past Kevin Hurley on the racetrack for position, has now moved himself 6th place overall. When you consider...
It's Mitchell's gone way off in turn one. I thought he was going to stuff it into the tires, but that might be all she wrote there with just under 10 minutes left. That's a pretty large gap he's left himself now.
And that
as he's going to spin now in the International Horseshoe. That's going to wrap it up. That'll be the bow on the that'll be the final nail in the coffin for this battle for second, I think.
As he loops it around in the horseshoe. Man, tough break for someone who was running down, had a shot just a lap ago, and now finds himself about 10 seconds behind the one who is trying to fight for the second place position. Still in a podium spot, though, and he's about 36 and a half seconds ahead of Lemongrants. So, if anything you can take away from this, he had a shot, he tried his hardest. He's still going to get a podium spot in the overall and in the prototype category, as Kevin Hurley has officially retired from the race. He has now left the session, meaning that the entire GT2 field moves up one spot, as Brody Gardner now running 6th place overall in that Corvette, looking to get Corvette its second win on the season. Just a different team for that, for those Corvettes. It's the factory team versus the privateer team. Tyler Landenberg still running a very healthy second place, about 36 seconds behind Gardner at this point in time. And you can see in the background that is... And we see that Vallejos is running he's still running very well, about 4 seconds. So I took a pause to see what the relative was saying. The relative was lying to me for a minute, but I saw him in the camera, and I don't know why I was confused. We're under 10 minutes to go. The blue flag rule is in effect, and we will be going all the way on the on green as per race control. As I say that, Vallejos is pitting, which makes... I don't know if that's for fuel or if that's because he has a problem. Actually, a lot of the GTs are on pit road. Okay, this is scheduled.
Yeah, it could be scheduled. Just topping off, making a dash to the end. It is late. Like we had speculated about it earlier, thinking that it would be really tight to the finish. So they're diving in. At least Tyler and Horatio are. That's going to be a tight battle then for second in class, as they're pretty nose to tail. We'll see if Brody Gardner dives down. I would imagine he will.
Gardner's only out on 7 laps.
That's true. He has pit pretty recently. So yeah, he's going to stay out to the end of this thing. But it's going to be a close battle between Tyler and Horatio. They're about a corner apart. I'd say about 7 to 8 seconds separating those two.
At least that's about 5, actually.
Yeah, it might be a little closer than that. Just eyeballing.
So Vallejos trying to run down Landenberg. That Porsche's got pace. I don't know if it has enough pace to get back up to the back end in 8 minutes. They only have that amount of time left to go. The battle in GT3, you can say it's all but over, because Jordan Malcolm has walked away. He has now got a 38, almost 39 second lead over Travis Stevens, who is about 21 seconds ahead of Scott Rankin. And when you consider how Scott Rankin's night started, this is about the best he could have hoped for how it ends, as he's going to get a podium spot. So you got to think he can retire from the race and still get a podium with how much he's got over the 4th place driver in that class, which is Josh Patterson, and he is about 43 seconds behind that.
Yeah, definitely quite the rebound drive for him in that 156 Merc. Started the day on his roof right here in the infield. Just a bystander to somebody else's mess, but actually no, was the initial cause of the incident. Since then, doesn't have a scratch on that machine since his fast repairs. Just the dirt and grime from running for the past 2 hours and 26 minutes. So he's done a nice job to get back to this point, and well done to him. It's going to be a nice sigh of relief whenever he's able to finish this on the podium.
Nice. A relief is I think the best way that you could have put it. Is, it's never fun when on the first lap of an endurance race you have something like that happen to you. In a sim race, it's the only place it can really happen to you is in a sim race, and you'll be able to get back and be competitive. And iRacing is pretty forgiving with its fast repairs, and the league sets how many fast repairs that these drivers are allowed to have. So given that he had one in his pocket, he was able to use it early, has kept his nose clean ever since. And again, like you said, it's about the best you can get after something like that happened, and running last place on the racetrack, although 12th overall. So not bad showing for that team as Kevin Hurley has retired. Okay, never mind. The
That was a
GT3.
while ago, yeah.
Yeah, never mind. The GT3s were just now passing him, so I thought that something else happened. But yeah, Kevin Hurley has been retired. I was just seeing things in the late stages of a race as the commentators also get a bit fatigued in these races. I'm not quite used to doing 2.5 hours straight. I'm getting there though. I enjoy racing endurance races when I can just settle in and run my race, and watching them is another joy. But watching them while also talking about it is another thing that fatigues you. Is you're basically talking for 2.5 hours straight.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've called any race really, and I don't know how you do it. My voice starting to go hoarse here, getting a little sore after talking for as you said 2.5 hours. So just got to shake off the rust. I guess it's been a while since I've called a race of any sort, but definitely taking a toll on me as voice is starting to go here.
Some of these guys that you see that do commentary for the 24-hour races, such as all the group at Radio Le Mans, I have no idea how you guys do it. You guys are in another class that I don't belong in, and I enjoy listening into Radio Le Mans. I have this thing where I watch the race broadcast, but I turn off the broadcast commentary and listen to
Yeah.
Radio Le Mans.
Yeah, you and me both. I find that the YouTube broadcasts are usually the best. You've got the Radio Le Mans boys, John Hindhaugh and company, calling the race there. Always a good group, calling the action for us.
It's always a pleasure to hear John Hindhaugh, and he's got the most unique voice, I think, wholesale in all of broadcasting, and always a pleasure to hear him call any race. I kind of hope that he would call some. I really wish, and in a world where everything's perfect, I'd like to hear him do an Indy 500. I think that would be something crazy to listen to his commentary over Indy 500.
Yeah, that would certainly spice things up a little bit. That's having him call an oval race of any sort would be exciting. Was cool to listen to him call the iRacing IMSA series during the initial start of the COVID pandemic at the beginning of the year when racing was put on hold. He was there calling the races on iRacing, and that was certainly special to listen to and made it a little more entertaining.
It did indeed, and love the Radio Le Mans boys. So shameless plug for Radio Le Mans. If you haven't heard of them, where have you been? Why are you watching this series? If you are watching this series, you have to have heard of Radio Le Mans. And if you haven't, you have been living under a rock. They call the big boy races, and this is a big boy race too. But the 24 hours of Le Mans is definitely not a small race. As 2.5 minutes to go in the race, Dan Neese will take the penultimate lap this time around. One more lap after this one will be shown for the leader overall in that 14 car. And to say that it's been pretty much more of the same from 2 weeks ago is an understatement. He has gotten out in front. He's had a few squabbles throughout this race. It hasn't all been clean. It's been back and forth, and especially after that second restart, he's had some spins on his own going into turn one and bringing out the yellow for our second full course yellow. But ever since then, back in the lead, 22-second lead, nothing to shake a stick at.
Just been the dominant car all race long, has had the most speed, the most outright pace. As you said, has had his work cut out for him at some portions of the race, but has done a fantastic job overall, as well as our other class leaders, Brody Gardner and Jordan Malcolm. They too have driven fantastic races, comfortable leads for both those guys respectively. Just a tip of the cap to all the class leaders this afternoon.
All the class leaders have done fantastic. Landenberg not quite gonna get his second win on the season, although it's very early on in the season. This is only race 2 out of 10 this season for these USRA American Le Mans Series drivers. As coming on to NASCAR Turn 3 is Dan Neese, going to take the final lap of the Daytona Continental, and it has been a fantastic race top to bottom, and a fantastic battle between Dan Neese and some other drivers throughout this race, and I'm sure he's going to be happy to see this race coming to an end, although a bit bittersweet, because these races, they never last as long as we want them to. Even the 24-hour races never last as long as we want them to, because if you're a fan like I am, you can watch these cars go around tracks infinitely and never get bored. It's kind of sad to see this one come to an end so quickly. As I say, 2.5 hours is quickly, but Dan Neese going to come around through the kink for the final time, cruising for a overall victory. Brody Gardner has yet to take the white flag. He will do that very soon, as he's now coming through the backstretch chicane, and Jordan Malcolm doing the same thing, as he's actually coming down the front stretch to take his final lap of the race. Dan Neese going on to the speedway portion of the racetrack, final time. And Logan, it's been a long race, as he's kind of taking it slow this time, trying to savor the moment, as he's been in the lead pretty much all race long.
Yeah, meandering his way through the oval, just kind of taking it all in. Gonna make sure, yeah, he's just riding. I was making sure he wasn't running out of fuel. I was scared there for a second, but oh,
that's a line.
A little bit of the scenic route through there.
Trying to start a lawn mowing service here as well.
Yeah. Yes. He's got to be careful. It's only a 20-second gap to Justin Erb, who is just now coming through the bus stop. So,
just got to get a move on.
Yeah, he's noticed that now. He puts the hammer down, and he's going to claim his victory here today.
Any win at Daytona is special, and this one is going to be extra special. Dan Neese, top to bottom, takes the win here at the Daytona Continental in the USRA American Le Mans Series, and a dominating fashion as well. Credit to him. Credit to all these drivers in the prototype category who finishes the day out in their positions, in their respective positions. We now look back to Jordan Malcolm in the 335 as he's coming around through the bus stop to take his final time through there. And like I said, any win at all, no matter what series, no matter what discipline, no matter what configuration at Daytona is special. And Jordan Malcolm is going to write his name down as a winner here at Daytona in that Mercedes AMG. And he's going to come around to take the checkered flag at the Daytona road course. A special moment for Jordan Malcolm as well. And we look back now to Brody Gardner coming across the line. Your winner in GT2 for the Corvette factory team. And Corvette goes 2 for 2 on the season. 2 different teams, 2 different wins, all Corvette, as they have made their presence known in the ALMS as being a dominant force in this series. As we go to Dan Neese, as he's taking his victory lap around the circuit. And Logan, any final thoughts that we've had while we're still here as he's taking his victory lap? What was it? Everything that you expected it was?
Yeah, typical Daytona road course endurance fashion here. It was exciting in parts, had the lulls kind of midway through, but lived up to its name, lived up to what we expect from Daytona, and the added element of the extremely hot track temps always played a factor throughout the night and made this race just that much more interesting.
Indeed it did. The scorching hot track temps that saw the leader get caught out a few times, as it wasn't all easy for him at the front either. And Dan Neese with his second win of the season. Very good showing for that team as well. As gotta think that this momentum is going to carry on into the next couple of races, as we have some interesting tracks coming up for these drivers to race on. And it's just getting started. The season is young, and we will expect to see Dan Neese be a factor in all of these races coming up. Tyler Landenberg comes out with a second place position in GT2, and Horacio Vallejos is going to get a third place in class. Your finishing order for there it goes. There goes Gardner spinning it around in the infield as the two class winners have a bit of a go at each other in the infield. As you know, they're the winners, they deserve it. As the fans on their feet here, a full stadium here at Daytona, and got to think burning it down for the fans is exactly what these fans needed after sitting through what quite possibly is another fantastic race, as they always seem to happen at Daytona. As your overall winner burns it down on the front stretch, as your top five finishers in Prototype 2 will be Dan Neese winning the race, Justin Erb, Daniel Mitchell, Eric Blumengrantz, and Andrew Gemelin will be your final running order for there. Gardner, Landenberg, Vallejos, that's your finishing order in GT2. And GT3 will see Jordan Malcolm, Travis Stevens, and Scott Rankin. The Cinderella story of tonight's race will get a third place in class and an 11th place overall on the night. As we are going to go in and look for our top three in class. They are now in the waiting room ready for our interviews. We'll bring them up. We'll start with our GT3 winner, that being Jordan Malcolm. Hey, Jordan, it's Anthony and Logan in the Flatout Racing Network booth. You have us.
I do.
Well, you had a very interesting race tonight. It wasn't all easy. The scorching track temps surely didn't make it any easier. And you come out with a win in GT3. From your perspective, how was the race from top to bottom? And do you feel like you had a car all night to dominate?
Not a car to dominate. Big thing with this track was breaking the toe, and that was really hard to do in the first stint. But obviously track conditions weren't favourable. We'll probably practicing in the night a bit and show up and it's midday, so that was definitely a new obstacle thrown at us. But overall, good result, and move on to VIR next week.
VIR is next, and that's another technical track that we saw, much like Sebring will be, and a historic track in Virginia. But as far as track temps went, it was scorching hot all race long. We saw a lot of, in fact, that first lap, we saw a product of how hot the track was as everyone tried to get on the brakes and no one really quite got it slowed down in the nick of time. As going through the little bit of a chicane there out of turn one, everyone kind of piled in and the GT3s went flying. From your perspective, what was that like?
It was certainly interesting. I was actually at the front of it, so I think it was Scott that got airborne. So that all happened behind me. So I didn't think too much of it, but just track position was key in like the very start of the race, and then just trying to break the draft.
Very true. And as we look towards VIR, you have another win this season. Going into VIR, your team has been fast consistently. What are you looking for in VIR? You trying to bring in the skill that you have acquired here as well going into VIR, and what's your overall goal for that race?
VIR is a track I've actually never raced at, so I guess first goal would be the finish, which would always be a good start. But now overall, obviously looking to carry over the same pace, but we'll do a week's worth of practice and see how fast we can get for next weekend.
Well, congratulations on your GT3 win tonight at Daytona for us on the East Coast of America. But we would like to open the floor out to you for any shout outs you'd like to make before we send you off.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Cardboards, trading cards and board games, for all their support. Obviously, Flatout Racing Network for the broadcasting. Always great to have you guys on board. And then Warren for setting up this league for us.
Well, that is our winner in GT3, Jordan Malcolm. We hope to see him do well the next time they go out at VIR, and you have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thank you.
As now we'll get our winner from GT2 in the booth. That would be Brody Gardner. Brody, it's Anthony and Logan in the booth. You have us.
Yep.
Well, Corvette gets its second win of the season, albeit it's a different Corvette. This time it's you on the top step of the podium in GT2. What was the race like from your perspective? And was there any moments in the race where you felt like that your car might not have been well, or was your car feeling pretty good all race long?
Track felt good all race long. The setup I made really suited the hot temps. So it was pretty stable and it was really fast in a straight line compared to the other race cars. So overall, I felt like I had the better car today, and yeah, the balance was great throughout the whole 2.5 hours.
Coming out of Sebring, you had the lead, and then we're not really sure if it was netcode or if you did tag the pit wall, which kind of took you out of contention for the win of the race. However, bouncing back here has to be good for your morale. Going into VIR, what is your goal for that race, and do you think that you could replicate uh, the lead that you had this race?
I think you got me confused. I didn't race Sebring.
Oh, you didn't race. I thought you did. Oh,
Yeah,
so
I
sorry.
think that was someone else.
That must have been somebody else. I thought you were. Maybe you didn't. Okay. Well, never mind. Looking to VIR, what are you looking forward to going into that race if you do intend to race it?
Well, first I need to buy VAR, but if I do that, my goal is to win. I think it's an awesome track. One of those tracks I need an actual excuse to buy, but yeah, goal would be to go out and win just like I did today.
And you won by a pretty big margin too. Before we let you go, however, we would like to congratulate you on your class victory. Before we let you go, one more question. With the track temps tonight, we saw a lot of drivers have issues with slowing the car down and getting traction out of the turns. Did you feel that the track temps were hindering you any at all? And there was a couple close calls, especially on the restarts of the full course yellows. What was your perspective like on that front?
Yeah, the track temps were definitely difficult to deal with. I feel like a lot of people were struggling with them and didn't plan for a track that was that hot. So I feel like it did throw a wrench into the plans of a lot of people. I kind of got lucky, and like I said, my setup just kind of fit into that. Yeah, and those restarts, they were mostly fun, I guess. The P2s got out in front, and I was mostly out in front of all the chaos in the GT field, so wasn't too big of a deal on my end.
Well, that's certainly good because that Corvette was fast, and we again congratulate you on your first place in GT2. And before we let you go, we're going to let you do any shout outs you want to make.
Follow Wavy Brugod on Instagram for epic hood moments. And yeah, chew it and do it.
That is Brody Gardner, driver of the Corvette factory team, and we look forward to seeing you next time around, wherever that might be at VAR or wherever you choose to race. And have a great rest of your night.
You too. Thanks.
Now we'll get our overall winner of the race, Dan Neese, back in the booth. Hey Dan, it is Anthony and Logan in the booth. You have us.
Hey, how's it going?
From the sound of your voice, it sounded like it was going pretty well for you out there. You got another win, second win on the season. Although this one was a bit more challenging to get, as that second safety car kind of closed everything up. From your perspective, though, what was tonight's race like? You feel like that you kind of replicated the success you had from Sebring over to Daytona, and how overall just how the car felt.
It was really hard, honestly. Without a doubt, the hottest track temp I've ever seen in my entire time playing iRacing. So 136 degrees was like the top track temp. So it was like IMSA on ice. was the easiest way to explain it. It was not chill. So, sorry for keep spinning during that. I'm sure you guys were probably like, why is the leader spinning so much? But my tires, when I pit, were at 4%. So, my tires were at 4% when I pit. So, I've never gotten tires that low ever. And it wasn't even like the sides. It was like the center of the tires. So, that track temp was insane. And Chris, by the way, I looked because you said it was today's temperature. The sim date was for May 15th. So that's why it was so hot. So it was like the middle of summer, just insanely hot on the track. So, but overall, was fun. Had a great time. Got me really excited for the Daytona 24. Really looking forward to that one.
It sounds like it's going to be a great race for you if that happens. Or you talking about the real life one or the iRacing 24?
Both. I'll be going
yeah.
to the real one this year again, so that'll be fun. But I'm excited to do the Daytona 24 and actually have my stuff together this time. So
we look forward to seeing you do well in that race. Yeah, the track temps were insane tonight. We kept mentioning, we saw you spinning around and we knew what was happening, but we were just like, man, there's something. He's able to hold the lead, and the benefit was you had a big enough lead that you could spin in a few times and not lose it. But that last safety car that came out, you did lose the lead, and there was a bit of a three-way battle between you and the other prototypes at the moment. Overall, you had the fastest car, but cutting your way through those drivers on such a hot racetrack cannot be easy, and it was a thrill to watch. But what was that like, trying to cut your way through traffic while battling for a prototype lead?
Yeah, it was insanely hard. The main thing was, funny enough, that when he threw the caution, I was pitting that lap. So I didn't pit. So I had to keep turning the car on and off to keep my car from running out of gas. I went across the line with 0.4 of a lap left of fuel in the car. So I had to turn it off and just let it coast the entire time. Because if not, I would have had a tow, and that would have been really, really bad. But luckily, it didn't run out of gas. I was like on fumes. I was about to just pit right as the yellow went out, but I didn't know if I'd get black flagged, and I really didn't want to go back through the GT traffic, because especially with everybody all bunched up like that, and the track being as hot as it was, that would have been just chaos waiting to happen. But luckily that didn't happen. But running with them, it was fun. Obviously, like especially on a restart like that, when you're close to someone with the draft, you can easily just pull up beside them, and they were proving that, because anytime I tried to get away at the beginning going through the bus stop, they were just right beside me each time. So I kind of just sat behind them for a minute to see what they were doing, because they seemed really eager, and I was like, I really don't want to wreck, because my goal is this entire season is never use one fast repair. So that's what we're doing, and that's what I did. So.
And you did it very well, I might add. Next week, or whenever that happens, I have to look at the schedule again, but the next race on the calendar for you guys is VIR. Are the prototypes racing that race? I know that VIR is typically a GT only race. Okay.
Yeah.
Prototypes are racing.
Yeah, the prototypes are.
Going into VIR, we don't normally see prototypes race at VIR. So what are you expecting out of that race? And basically, how you feel going into it?
I don't know, and I feel not good because I've never driven that track ever. So we'll see how it goes, I guess. Definitely gonna put in a little bit of practice because I don't want to come and make a what of myself. I'm trying not to cuss this time. I'm sorry for that last time, guys, but yeah, I don't want to do that. So definitely gonna be putting in a little bit of practice. I'll probably host a couple too, so other people can come practice, because it is nice that we got a decent turnout for this. I'm hoping that we can get a couple more people to come out. I've literally just been messaging people anytime I see them, and I'm like, hey, you should come run this. It's worth it. It's a lot of fun. It's really easy. Like, it's just chill. You know what I mean? So it's an easy experience for sure, because you don't really get this long of a race typically in any official series. So this is like perfect practice for doing endurance racing, because I did a quad stint technically, so that's longer than I pretty much have done any endurance race other than Le Mans. So should be interesting. I'm just not too sure how fast I'm going to be there, because I've never driven that track, but Definitely gonna go and give it my best effort and see how I can do.
It is a very technical track and I have never even mastered it myself, and I have raced there quite a bit on various sims, and I'm not good at it either. But we look forward to seeing what you can do at VIR. Before we let you go, we're going to give you a chance to get some shout outs before we let you off.
Yeah, shout out bluechew.com. You know the gist already. Chew it and do it. That's the motto. Check it out. Shout out to the whole Blue Chew team that came out tonight. I think we had 5 people show up that usually run with us and some mixed things every once in a while. So it's nice to have them all out there. Shout out to Brody getting first in the GTE class. First time ever driving a GTE. That was pretty cool. So shout out to him for that. And I bought him the Corvette so he could show up. So so shout out to him for doing that. As well as shout out. He told me, I don't know exactly what this means, but he said to follow Wavy Bruh God on IG for epic hood moments. So shout out to that too, I guess. I'm not sure what that is.
He said the same thing when he gave his interview.
Yep. He told me to shout it out too. So there we are. We're shouting that out, I guess. And then shout out to you guys for broadcasting this. It's awesome. Really appreciate you guys coming out and doing this. I hope that it was somewhat enjoyable, a little bit more enjoyable than Daytona, I'm sure, especially with that track temp. That was absolute chaos. But hopefully I never see those track temps ever again in the rest of my life. I'm praying on it because that was the opposite of fun. And I can't even imagine doing a 24-hour race in track temps like that. That would just be so bad. It would be awful. But
that would be not okay. But thank you for joining us up in the booth, Dan, and congratulations on your second overall victory on the season. And we look forward to seeing what you can do at VIR. And once again, have a good night.
Thanks for having me. See you guys.
And that was Dan Neese, driver of the Prototype 2 entry, the number 14 Prototype 2 entry. And Logan, we saw probably one of the greater Daytona races that we could have hoped for, with a field that had a good mixed bag of skill levels. And at the end of the night, we saw the best drivers come out on top at the end of 2.5 hours of nonstop action. What was your takeaway overall from this race? And do you think that this series is going up in the world?
Yeah, I mean, it's like we touched on so many times throughout the event. I appreciate you taking those interviews. I've popped some painkills and drank some water, got the voice back going a little bit. So I appreciate you filling in for me there. But yeah, it was the biggest outlier was the track temp. A lot of those, like Dan was saying, that was the hottest. I think it was the hottest I've ever seen a track temp as well. For me personally, that was just outrageously just scorching. And I can't imagine what driving any other type of car other than the cars we saw out there today. Imagine wheeling a Cup Series car around there in that track temp. You wouldn't be able to get the power down whatsoever. So that was the biggest outlier. That was the biggest factor in today's race, and certainly not something we're used to seeing at Daytona. But other than that, the racing was fantastic, like it always is at Daytona, and looking forward to the possibility of doing more of these.
Indeed. So we don't know what the future of the American Le Mans Series on the Flatout Racing Network is, but when we find out, you'll be sure to know about it. I am Anthony McCurry. That was Logan Brakey. We appreciate you coming along and watching the Daytona Continental on the USRA American Le Mans Series. Their race 2, the first of their crown jewel races, and they still have a long season to go. And it's looking like it's going to be an epic season if the first 2 races have shown us a bit of a show at the beginning of the season. 5 hours of racing in total has been run in the series, and that's only going to look up and up as a mixed bag of different length races happening throughout the remainder of the season. Some 1 hour, 1.5, 2 hour races going to be on the schedule, and we look forward to seeing the results from those races. Even if we don't broadcast them, we're looking forward to keeping up with this series as it's gotten interesting. And it's always fun to watch endurance racing and GT racing. Any form of sports car racing really is. I think Logan and I can agree that this is one of the coolest form of racing that you can possibly get.
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. Multi-class is the best.
It's a show of drivers' skill, not only in their respective classes, but in other classes that they have to get around and coexist on the same circuit with. And it's just so much fun. You need to go and watch some of the top series to see what we're talking about. And it's something special. And for all of those who have stuck with us again, thank you for staying with us throughout the entire broadcast if you made it this far. And we look forward to seeing you again on another Flatout Racing Network broadcast. Until then, I am Anthony McCurry. He is Logan Breakey, and we will see you next time on the Flatout Racing Network. Have a great night.